Welcome, and thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight, we are going to take a slow, peaceful journey back in time to a land of golden sands, flowing rivers, and ancient wonders, the timeless land of Egypt. As you settle into your bed or your favorite chair, allow your body to begin to relax. Just a little, and your mind to soften. Gently, slowly, take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Feeling the tension leave your body, letting your shoulders drop, your hands rest, your legs sink into comfort. Tonight, we will drift together through thousands of years of history, through the quiet, measured lives of the people who built the pyramids, who tended the fertile lands along the Nile, who carved temples and monuments that have stood the test of time. We will move slowly, deliberately, from village to riverbank, from bustling marketplaces to calm temple courtyards, observing every detail, noticing the rhythm of life in Egypt as it unfolded. Layer by layer, day by day. You don't need to rush. You don't need to think. You don't need to do anything except listen and allow yourself to drift with the gentle flow of history and the quiet, hypnotic cadence of life. Feel the warm sun on your skin, the soft desert sands under your feet, the cool, steady current of the Nile, the soft rustle of palm leaves in the wind. Every sensation slowing you down, guiding you toward calm, toward stillness, toward sleep. Tonight's story is long, immersive, and designed to help your mind unwind, to help your thoughts settle, to carry you gently into rest. So, get comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, take another slow, deep breath in. Slowly, softly. So if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe first so that we can continue to the story. Long ago, in a land bathed by the gentle waters of a river that flowed steadily and silently, there was a place that would come to be called Egypt. The river, the Nile, wound through the land in long, patient curves, bringing life wherever it touched. In those early days, people settled along the riverbanks, drawn by the promise of fertile soil and water that never ran dry. The river moved slowly, whispering to the reeds and to the fish, and the people learned to move slowly as well, working with the seasons, planting crops when the river receded, and gathering them when the river swelled. They learned the rhythm of the sun, the slow rise and fall of days, the gentle changes in the sky, and they built small villages that grew gradually, steadily, without rush or haste. Life was slow, and the days were long, and the people measured time in the rise of the river and the ripening of the grain. As time passed, these villages grew. They grew into towns, and towns grew into cities. As slowly as clouds drift across the sky, the people discovered that they could shape the earth, that they could use mud and reeds to build small homes, and then, with patience, build larger homes. They learned to make pottery that held water and food, and they learned to weave cloth from flax, moving their fingers over threads again and again, slowly, carefully. They began to keep records, first simple marks in clay, then more careful symbols, slowly turning into writing that would eventually be called hieroglyphs. Every mark took time, and every mark was important, and they practiced them again and again, tracing each line slowly, letting the rhythm of the hand calm the mind. Kings began to emerge, rulers of small lands, slowly gaining influence over neighboring villages. These rulers were cautious, patient, and careful, as the land itself was patient. They built small structures of stone and mud, slowly learning the ways of planning and organizing. They began to bury the dead with care, slowly, with attention to details, and over many years, these burial places became more elaborate. Tombs were built to last, slowly rising out of the earth, marking the passage of many days, months, and years. The dead were given goods to take with them, small items made carefully, slowly, by the hands of craftsmen who knew that time was not to be hurried. The river continued its slow journey through the land, touching every village, every town, and every city. Crops grew, ripened, and were gathered over and over again. Seasons passed, and the people adapted. They observed the stars at night, slowly learning their patterns, noticing which stars appeared when the river began to swell, and which stars disappeared as the sun rose high in the sky. They measured time with shadows, with water clocks, with careful observation, all slow, gentle, patient. Over centuries, small kingdoms united, slowly, into larger ones. Leaders became more ambitious, planning larger structures, slowly refining their methods. Stone began to be quarried in larger quantities. On the Isle of Genoa, slowly, carefully, massive monuments were raised. Pyramids rose, one stone at a time, each block placed with care, each block heavy and deliberate. The workers moved with patience, knowing that speed was not necessary, and the sun rose and set over the work. Each day, a quiet rhythm of labor and rest. The pyramids grew taller, slowly, over years, and then centuries. Each pyramid was silent, still, a monument to patience and time. The Nile continued its patient course. Boats moved slowly across its surface, carrying goods, people, and stories from one city to another. Trade grew, and merchants traveled, slowly and steadily, moving their wares to distant land. They learned to measure weight, count grain, and keep records of transactions. Time passed slowly, and every day looked much like the day before. Crops were planted, crops were harvested, the river flowed, the sun rose, the sun set, and the people moved with the same quiet rhythm that the river had always maintained. The kings and rulers of Egypt became more powerful, slowly, over generations. They built temples, carefully arranging columns, slowly carving statues, slowly inscribing walls with stories of gods and kings. The priests moved in quiet processions, slowly chanting prayers that echoed in the cool stone halls. Each ritual took time, and every movement was deliberate, careful, precise. Life in the temples mirrored the slow, deliberate movement of the river outside. Time was measured not in hours, but in seasons, in the rise and fall of the Nile, in the slow growth of flax and grain. And so life continued, slowly, steadily. Kings and pharaohs ruled, building monuments, issuing decrees, watching the river and the stars. Farmers planted, harvested, and rested. Craftsmen carved, molded, and wove, always patiently repeating their work. The Nile flowed, as it always had, through all of Egypt, touching every village and every city, patient, silent, unending. Time passed in its quiet, inevitable way, and the land remained, slowly changing, slowly evolving, always constant, always calm. The old kingdom of Egypt emerged slowly, as all things in this land of the river did. The Nile flowed as it had for countless years, bending gently through the land, carrying silt and life to the fields, making the soil fertile so that crops could grow and be harvested season after season. In those days, The pharaohs ruled with quiet authority, their power growing gradually, not abruptly, but over time, as the villages coalesced into cities, and cities into regions. Each pharaoh was patient, careful, and deliberate, planning his work slowly, knowing that the land itself measured time, and that the river would continue to flow regardless of human ambition. The first pyramids were built in this period, slowly, deliberately, with stones quarried and transported over long distances. Each block was lifted with effort, placed with attention, and the workers moved in a steady rhythm. Day after day, the sun rose and set over the construction sites, and the workers adjusted to its slow march, resting when it was high and working when it was cooler. The pyramids grew taller, stone by stone, and each pyramid took years, decades even, to complete. The silence of the stones once in place was deep and still, a quiet testament to the passage of time. Life in Egypt at this time was slow and predictable. Farmers woke with the sun, planting seeds in the soft, wet soil, feeling the mud between their fingers. They knew the seasons well. When the river rose, it covered the fields with fertile silt, leaving them ready for planting. Once it receded, they moved methodically, sowing each row, watering if needed, watching the sprouts grow day by day. The rhythm of life matched the river, steady, unhurried, constant. Children played near the riverbanks, their laughter echoing softly, fading into the distant call of birds and the gentle rush of water. Craftsmen worked in their workshops, shaping clay into pots, weaving flax into cloth, carving wood and stone, fluidly repeating motions again and again. On their hands remembered the rhythm. The pharaohs were seen as divine, slowly consolidating power over all the people, their words carrying weight because of tradition and reverence. They built temples to honor the gods, structures that were massive, slowly erected, each stone measured and placed with precision. Priests moved through these temples in quiet processions, chanting softly, moving slowly, their voices blending with the stillness of the stone halls. Rituals were long and deliberate, repeating gestures, repeating words, so that the rhythm of the ceremonies became almost hypnotic, unchanging across seasons and years. The gods in these rituals were acknowledged as constant, steady forces, much like the river that nourished the land. The Old Kingdom was marked by administration that grew slowly, more sophisticated. Tribes recorded taxes, measured grain, and kept accounts, all in careful hieroglyphs, slow, deliberate marks on papyrus. Officials traveled between towns, ensuring that the rules were followed, moving in steady, predictable patterns. Soldiers, too, trained with patience, drilling in formations, practicing with weapons that they held carefully. Their movements controlled and adhered. There was no rush in Egypt, only careful attention to the flow of life, the rise and fall of the river, the steady path of the sun, and the long passage of time. Pyramids and tombs reflected the slow accumulation of knowledge and skill. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu, rose carefully, stone by stone. Workers moved blocks, sometimes with simple tools, sometimes with ingenious methods, testing and adjusting slowly, ensuring that the structure would last for centuries. The shape of the pyramid itself required patience. Each layer had to be perfectly aligned, each corner precisely measured. The pyramid's interior passages were narrow and deliberate, constructed with attention, so that the journey of the soul after death could be guided in quiet, careful step. Pharaohs were buried with treasures, small items for daily life, jewelry, and offerings. Each item crafted with care, slowly, to last beyond the fleeting life of the mortal world. Everyday life in Egypt was repetitive, steady and slow. Farmers tilled the land, sowed seeds, tended to animals, and harvested crops. Bakers ground grain to make bread, a staple that was eaten daily. Potters shaped vessels for storage, cooking, and carrying water, repeating motions over and over until the clay obeyed their hands. Fishermen worked along the Nile, casting nets, rowing small boats, pulling in fish. Day after day, their routines synchronized with the river's gentle flow. Children grew slowly, learning the customs of their people, helping with chores, and observing the steady rhythms of work and rest that defined life along the Nile. The Middle Kingdom came after a period of slight disorder, slowly restoring unity to Egypt. Pharaohs once again asserted authority, organizing large projects with patience and deliberation. Irrigation systems were improved, canals were dug carefully, and reservoirs were constructed to hold water during dry seasons. Farmers relied on these systems, planting crops and waiting for the river to rise, then receding in a measured pattern. The people moved in a slow, deliberate rhythm, always guided by the steady presence of the Nile. During the Middle Kingdom, literature and art developed gradually. Writers composed stories and hymns, their words carefully chosen, sometimes repeated in chants or songs, so that they could be memorized and passed down. Painters decorated tombs with scenes of daily life, slowly adding details of farming, fishing, feasting, and hunting. Every image was repeated carefully, with patterns and symbols that were meant to last, meant to be understood long after the artist was gone. Music was gentle and slow, with harps and flutes, often accompanying rituals in temples or celebrations during festival. The melodies were soft and measured, designed to soothe and calm, echoing the slow flow of the river outside. The New Kingdom, which followed after centuries, brought expansion and exploration, but still, the pace of life was slow. Pharaohs, such as Hatshepsut and Ramses, moved carefully in their planning of armies, trade expeditions, and monuments. Temples grew grander, columns taller, carvings more intricate. The temples reflected the same rhythm as the river. Patient, deliberate, steady, workers placed stone blocks slowly, carving figures and hieroglyphs, repeating the motions that generations of artisans had used. Even as armies moved, the movements were carefully planned, not rushed, and logistics were handled with patience, understanding that timing was essential. Trade with distant lands expanded gradually. Caravans moved slowly across deserts, following predictable paths, carrying gold, incense, and precious stones. Ships moved along the Nile and across the Mediterranean, their sails catching the wind in measured, deliberate motion. Merchants counted their goods carefully, recorded transactions in papyrus, and repeated these practices daily. Week after week, season after season, even in exchange, everything moved at a gentle, unhurried pace, reflecting the slow, inevitable rhythms of Egyptian life. Religion remained a steady presence, a constant in a changing world. Temples, priests, rituals, and festivals repeated with regularity. Each festival followed the seasons, each ritual repeated with careful attention. Gods were depicted in statues and reliefs, their forms consistent, their stories slowly elaborated over centuries. People moved in quiet procession, offering food, incense, and prayers. Each action deliberate, each gesture meaningful, repeated enough to become almost automatic, blending with the unending flow of time. Art and architecture mirrored the calm repetition of life. Columns were erected with precise spacing. Walls were painted with repeating patterns. Statues were carved with careful attention to proportion. Artists and craftsmen worked slowly, mastering techniques over decades. Even small objects, pots, jewelry, amulets were made with patience, repeated motifs, and attention to detail. As if the rhythm of making was a meditation, as if every stroke and every line were meant to calm the hand and the river remained constant, flowing gently, touching every part of the land. Farmers depended on its rhythm. Fishermen navigated its waters. Merchants traveled its length. And pharaohs built monuments beside it. Life moved with the flow of the Nile. Slowly, steadily, predictably. Seasons came and went. Crops were planted and harvested. Rituals were performed. And children grew into adults, all under the unhurried watch of the river and the sun. Time passed, slowly, as it always had, and Egypt endured. Dynasties rose and fell. Pharaohs came and went. Monuments were built and left to stand in quiet silence. The river never stopped flowing, and the people continued their slow, repetitive task. Life was measured in cycles. The rise and fall of the river, the planting and harvesting of crops, the repetition of rituals, the steady passage of generation. Everything moved gently, predictably, like the river that had always been, like the sun that had always risen and set. And so, through centuries, Egypt remained a land of calm, steady rhythm. The stones of the pyramids stood quietly under the sun. Temples echoed with chants that repeated in measured tones. Fields yielded crops season after season. The river carried water, fish, and stories, moving slowly, unchanging, eternal. The people, pharaohs, farmers, craftsmen, and priests, all moved in harmony with the rhythm of the land, always patient, always deliberate, always gentle, always slow, always steady, and always calm. After many centuries of steady life along the Nile, Egypt continued to change slowly, gradually, in ways that were almost imperceptible day by day. Pharaohs came and went, dynasties rose and fell, and yet the rhythm of the river remained constant. The people, the farmers, the craftsmen, the scribes, and the priests all continued their work, following the slow, predictable cycles of the land. Each season brought new tasks, and each task was carried out with patience and care. The Nile swelled with the rains from distant mountains, flooding the fields with a gentle, life-giving water. Then, as the sun warmed the land, the waters receded, leaving behind dark, fertile soil. Farmers plowed the earth with wooden plows, pulled by oxen, turning it slowly, patiently, knowing that each furrow had to be straight, even, and careful. Seeds were sown one by one, spaced evenly, and after days of quiet labor, small green shoots would emerge, stretching upward toward the slow, steady sun. In towns and cities, life continued with the same measured pace. Craftsmen shaped clay into vessels, smoothed the surfaces carefully, and fired them in kilns, watching the flames with quiet attention. Potters' hands moved rhythmically, repeating the same motions over and over, shaping and reshaping until each piece was perfect in its simplicity. Weavers worked on looms, threading flax and wool, with careful attention, their fingers moving slowly, deliberately. Over each thread, bakers ground grain on stone, their hands moving steadily in circles, until fine flour formed, and then they mixed it with water and salt, kneading dough slowly, waiting as it rested before baking in the warm, gentle heat of the oven. Children observed their parents, learning these quiet skills, practicing over and over, until their movements were calm, precise, and unhurried. The pharaohs ruled from grand palaces, high above the towns and fields, and their actions, too, were measured and deliberate. Rulers consulted their advisors slowly, listening carefully, considering each word. Decrees were issued with patience, written by scribes who moved their brushes methodically across papyrus, forming hieroglyphs that told the story of Egypt for generations. The palace kitchens prepared food in long, quiet processes. Slaves and servants ground grain, chopped vegetables, salted fish, and prepared meat, all moving carefully so that no detail was missed. The air was filled with the smell of bread baking, of incense burning, and of slow, repetitive activity that echoed through the marble hall. Religion remained a central, steady presence in every life. Temples stood along the river, some large, some small, but all carefully constructed over long periods. Priests moved through these temples in processions, chanting prayers and offerings, their voices low, measured, almost blending into the echoing stone walls. Rituals were repeated daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, following the cycle of the Nile and the season. Gods such as Amun, Ra, Isis, and Osiris were honored with small gifts, offerings of bread, beer, flowers, and incense. Each action was deliberate, slow, and precise. The temples, the priests, the rituals, and the offerings all followed a steady rhythm that reflected the unhurried flow of life along the river. Trade and interaction with distant lands grew slowly but steadily. Merchants traveled in caravans across deserts, moving at the pace of camels, following paths that had been used for generations. Gold, ivory, incense, and precious stones were carried from Nubia, Punt, and other lands, moving slowly, measured, carefully counted, and recorded. Ships sailed along the Nile and across the Mediterranean, their sails catching the wind gently, carrying goods and people, all every transaction, every trade was recorded on papyrus, carefully written by scribes whose hands traced each line slowly, their eyes moving with quiet concentration. Life in the villages continued to mirror the unchanging rhythm of the land. Farmers rose at dawn, sometimes earlier, to guide their oxen through the fields, planting seeds, tending to crops, and repairing tools. Families lived in homes made of mud brick, their walls thick and insulating against the heat of the sun. Courtyards contained small gardens, birds, and sometimes livestock, and the air was filled with the soft sounds of animals moving slowly, quietly across the earth. Women ground grain, cooked food, and cared for children, moving with gentle repetition, and men repaired boats, built furniture, and maintained fields. Every day resembled the day before, and the predictability brought comfort, calm, and quiet. During the New Kingdom, Egypt expanded its influence slowly into neighboring land. Armies marched, but even these movements were deliberate and measured. Soldiers trained with steady precision, learning formations, practicing with weapons, repeating drills until every movement was controlled. Battles, when they came, were planned carefully, with consideration for the terrain, the river, and the sun's position. Even in warfare, there was a rhythm, a cadence, a slow unfolding of strategy that reflected the patience that governed every other aspect of life. Art and culture flourished in subtle, gentle ways. Tomb paintings depicted daily life, slowly illustrating farmers in fields, craftsmen at work, and fishermen along the riverbanks. Statues were carved in calm repetition, every line measured, every proportion considered carefully. Jewelry was fashioned with meticulous attention, beads strung in precise order, gold hammered slowly into thin sheets, and precious stones polished with repeated patient strokes. Music was soft, played on harps, flutes, and percussion, gentle and steady, accompanying rituals, festivals, and everyday tasks, blending with the constant flow of the Nile. Even the writing itself, hieroglyphs, was slow and deliberate. Scribes traced symbols carefully, sometimes repeating the same signs in multiple ways, practicing until each line was steady and uniform. Important documents, stories, and religious texts were copied again and again, preserved in tombs, temples, and archives. The repetition of writing mirrored the repetition of life. Planting and harvesting, chanting prayers, carving statues, and building structures. Each act, repeated over time, created a rhythm that was predictable, soothing, and enduring. Seasons continued to follow their natural pace. The inundation of the Nile brought life to the field. The summer sun ripened the grain. Autumn winds spread dust across the land. Winter brought cooler nights, and spring encouraged growth once more. People adapted their work to these patterns, moving slowly and carefully, in harmony with the unchanging rhythms of nature. Festivals were held in celebration of these cycles, but even these celebrations were measured and quiet, following prescribed steps and songs, with little haste or urgency. The construction of temples and monuments persisted slowly over generations. Massive stones were quarried, transported, and placed with careful attention. Sculptors shaped figures of gods, pharaohs, and animals, repeating motions, refining details, until the statues were precise and enduring. Columns were erected, painted, and inscribed with hieroglyphs, each step slow, deliberate, and methodical. The temples, once completed, became centers of quiet, repetitive activity. Prayers, offerings, processions, and ceremonies that moved at a patient pace, mirroring the flow of life outside their walls. Even as dynasties changed and foreign powers influenced the land, the slow rhythm of Egypt endured. Greek and Roman rulers eventually took control, and yet the Nile flowed as it had for millennia, and the people continued their measured, repetitive work. Farmers tended fields, craftsmen made pots, cloth, and jewelry, and priests maintained rituals. Slowly and deliberately, life remained predictable, steady, and calm. With the same cycles of planting, harvesting, ritual, and rest, the land, the river, the sun, and the stars all marked time in a slow, reassuring manner, guiding generations in their unhurried existence. The great monuments of Egypt, pyramids, temples, and tombs stood silently, enduring the slow passage of centuries. Stones carefully placed resisted the erosion of wind and sand. Hieroglyphs, carved and painted, preserved the stories of kings and gods. Even in decay, the structures continued to inspire patience and awe, a reminder that careful, deliberate effort could outlast the fleeting moments of human life. The river continued to flow past these monuments, steady, unchanging, nurturing the land, and guiding the people who moved in quiet, repetitive patterns, carrying on the same rhythms as their ancestors had done for thousands of years. Thus, life in Egypt remained slow, calm, and deliberate. Time was measured in cycles, in repetition, in the flow of the river, in the rise and fall of the sun. Farmers, craftsmen, priests, soldiers, merchants, and pharaohs all moved at the unhurried pace dictated by nature, tradition, and necessity. The land remained fertile, the river continued to flow, and the people carried on their quiet, steady tasks, generation after generation, century after century, enduring in rhythm with the timeless, patient Nile. Over time, Egypt experienced periods of change. Yet the river continued its quiet, steady flow, guiding life in its predictable rhythm. Dynasties shifted, pharaohs passed, and new rulers arrived. Some from distant lands, some from nearby cities, each moving cautiously, slowly, as if the land itself required patience. Even when conquerors entered Egypt, life along the Nile did not hurry. Farmers continued to plant and harvest. Artisans shaped clay, wood, and stone, and priests continued rituals with the same deliberate care as their ancestors had done. The rhythms of work, worship, and rest remained steady, unchanging, and calm, blending seamlessly with the flow of the river and the slow march of the season. During the later dynasties, Egypt encountered the Hyksos, foreign rulers who settled in the Nile Delta. They moved slowly through the land, establishing control over cities, yet they adapted to the rhythms of Egyptian life, recognizing that sudden change was neither natural nor sustainable. Villages and towns continued their routines. Farmers plowed fields in the rich silt, sowed seeds carefully, and harvested crops with patience, season after season. Craftsmen continued shaping pottery, carving statues, weaving cloth, and polishing jewelry, repeating techniques that had been practiced for generations. Even as political power shifted, daily life remained predictable, calm, and unhurried. Pharaohs of the New Kingdom restored Egypt's independence gradually. They planned military campaigns, constructed grand temples, and organized trade with distant lands, always with measured, deliberate steps. Armies moved in formation, soldiers trained patiently, and campaigns unfolded slowly, like the steady rise of the river. Trade caravans followed predictable desert routes, carrying gold, incense, and exotic goods, moving at the pace of camels and oxen, ensuring that each transaction was recorded carefully on papyrus by scribes whose hands traced each line slowly, and ships sailed along the Nile and the Mediterranean, their sails catching the wind in measured movements, carrying goods, people, and information, all progressing at the unhurried pace dictated by nature and necessity. In towns and cities, life continued in calm repetition. Marketplaces bustled gently with activity, merchants selling goods with soft voices, moving slowly between stalls, exchanging items, counting coins and grain with deliberate care. Children run briefly in the open spaces, then return to their chores, learning skills their parents practiced daily. Homes of mud brick lined narrow streets. Courtyards contained small gardens and animals, and the smell of bread baking, incense burning, and fish drying filled the air in gentle waves. Each day mirrored the last, each task completed with patience, each moment flowing quietly into the next, echoing the unchanging rhythm of the Nile. Religion persisted as a steady calming force in daily life. Temples were centers of continuity, their walls painted with repetitive scenes depicting gods, pharaohs, and everyday life. Priests performed rituals with deliberate, careful gestures, chanting prayers in measured tones, offering bread, beer, flowers, and incense. Festivals were held according to the cycles of the river, marking planting, harvest, and the rising of important stars. These celebrations were long, slow, and methodical, with processions, music, and dance unfolding gradually, reflecting the persistent, patient rhythm of existence in Egypt. Even as dynasties changed and foreign powers arrived, religious life remained steady, reliable, and calming a constant echo of generations past. The influence of foreign powers grew gradually. Egypt came under the rule of Persians, then Greeks under Alexander the Great, and later Romans. Despite these changes in leadership, The pace of life along the Nile continued to be slow and deliberate. Farmers followed the same cycles of planting and harvesting. Craftsmen practiced their trades as they always had. Scribes continued to copy texts, tracing hieroglyphs with careful precision. Temples echoed with chants and rituals, maintaining the same cadence of centuries past. The Nile flowed on, indifferent to politics, carrying water, fish, and stories, sustaining the predictable patterns of human activity along its banks. Greek influence introduced new styles, slowly blending with traditional Egyptian art, architecture, and culture. Columns and statues took on subtly different forms, combining Greek proportions with Egyptian symbolism. Coins were minted, slowly, stamped with images of rulers, gods, and symbols. Their creation following a careful, deliberate process. Libraries and learning centers appeared, where texts were copied meticulously by hand, scholars studying slowly, reading and writing in calm repetition, absorbing knowledge gradually, without haste. Even as innovations arrived, the rhythm of daily life remained unhurried, consistent and soothingly repetitive. The Roman period brought additional changes, but the Nile continued its quiet, steady flow. Roads and aqueducts were built, connecting cities, but people still moved at the pace dictated by animals, boats, and simple human effort. Markets, homes, farms, and workshops operated with the same patience as ever. Craftsmen continued carving, weaving, and molding, repeating familiar techniques, ensuring each item was precise, enduring, and carefully made. Temples remained centers of calm activity, where priests repeated rituals, offerings were made with deliberate care, and the chants and music echoed gently against stone walls. The river carried on, serene and consistent, touching every part of the land, guiding the steady passage of time. Even as new religions and ideas arrived with foreign rulers, the traditions of daily life persisted slowly and methodically. People rose with the sun, worked in fields, shops, and homes, rested during the heat of midday, and resumed tasks as the sun cooled. Children learned by observing and practicing, repeating small chores, imitating movements, absorbing the rhythm of life. Food was prepared slowly, meals taken quietly, and family routines followed predictable pattern. Music, soft and gentle, accompanied these tasks, echoing in courtyards, homes, and temples, providing a soothing background to the calm, unhurried existence along the river. The monuments of Egypt, slowly built over centuries, continued to stand. Pyramids, temples, statues, and tombs weathered time with quiet endurance. Stone surfaces retained their inscriptions, hieroglyphs telling stories that had been repeated countless times before. Carvings of gods, kings, and daily life remained visible, a steady reminder of human effort and patience. Travelers, pilgrims, and scholars came slowly, walking along the paths between monuments, observing, noting, and copying, always at a deliberate pace, never rushing, always matching the rhythm of the land and the river. Even decline occurred gradually. Cities shrunk, populations shifted, and the influence of Egypt waned in the wider world. Yet, the daily routines endured. Farmers continued to plant and harvest. Craftsmen continued their work. Priests maintained rituals, and children learned the same skills their ancestors had practiced. Life was measured not in the rise and fall of empires, but in the cycle of the seasons, the slow flow of the river, and the repetition of centuries-old pattern. Time remained calm, steady, and predictable, carrying people forward in a rhythm that was reassuring, familiar, and unhurried. Through every era, every ruler, every foreign influence, the slow, steady flow of the Nile defined life in Egypt. Seasons, crops, rituals, crafts, festivals, and labor all moved in harmony with the river's rhythm. People rose, worked, rested, and slept in a cycle repeated countless times across generations. The monuments, pyramids, temples, and tombs stood as silent witnesses, their stone surfaces echoing the deliberate, methodical efforts of those who had built them. And the river, flowing quietly and steadily, guided life along its banks with the same patient, unchanging consistency it had maintained for millennia. Thus, the history of Egypt unfolded slowly, deliberately, and predictably. Pharaohs ruled and passed, dynasties rose and fell, foreign powers arrived and departed, yet the rhythms of life persisted. Daily work, rituals, trade, art, music, and education continued in a calm, measured pattern. Seasons followed seasons, years followed years, and the river carried on without interruption. The land remained fertile, life continued steadily, and generations moved through their days with quiet patience, guided by the gentle, persistent flow of the Nile. The people, the river, the sun, and the monuments all existed in a state of calm repetition. Tasks were repeated, seasons were followed, rituals were performed, and life continued without hurry. The land of Egypt, over centuries, remained a place of patience, rhythm, and slow, steady existence. Each generation added to the monuments, the texts, and the traditions, contributing their own careful, deliberate efforts to a history that unfolded in gentle, unhurried waves. And so, Egypt endured, timeless, steady and calm, its story flowing as smoothly as the river itself, carrying life forward in a rhythm that was slow, predictable, and soothing. After the Roman period, Egypt slowly came under the influence of new rulers from the east. Arab armies moved carefully across the desert, reaching the Nile Valley, establishing control, and introducing new customs, languages, and religions. Yet life along the river continued its familiar, unhurried rhythm. Farmers rose with the sun, tilled the soil, sowed seeds, and tended animals, following the same predictable cycles that had guided their ancestors for millennia. Craftsmen molded clay, carved wood, wove cloth, and shaped metal, moving slowly, deliberately, repeating their motions, practicing their skills again and again, until the work was steady, precise, and enduring. Villages and towns maintained their routines, largely unchanged. Streets were narrow, homes built of mud brick. Courtyards contained small gardens, and the air smelled faintly of baking bread, drying fish, and gentle incense. Families rose, ate, worked, rested, and slept in repetition, guided by the sun and the river. Children watched their parents, learning slowly, copying movements, practicing tasks repeatedly, until their hands and minds remembered the quiet rhythm of life. Even as new languages and customs arrived with the Arab rulers, the daily patterns remained calm, steady, and predictable. Religion introduced new elements, but the methodical nature of rituals remained. Mosques were built along the river, their minarets rising slowly over time, constructed with careful attention to symmetry and proportion. The call to prayer echoed gently across towns, reminding people of their daily responsibilities, their cycles of work, and their times of rest. Daily prayers were performed with deliberate, measured movement. Festivals followed lunar months, slowly marking seasons and special events, blending gently with existing local traditions. Life was repetitive, calm, and unhurried, with every action performed in steady rhythm, echoing the flow of the Nile outside. Governance under Islamic rule was deliberate and slow. Administrators recorded taxes, supervised irrigation, and ensured that trade continued smoothly. Markets operated in familiar ways, merchants selling goods, counting coins, and recording transactions with steady precision. Caravans crossed deserts cautiously, guided by knowledge of the land and weather, carrying spices, textiles, and other goods. Ships traveled along the Nile at a patient pace, guided by wind and current, transporting people and commodities. Tribes recorded transactions carefully, tracing letters with deliberate, steady strokes, repeating forms until they were precise and uniform. Life was predictable, deliberate, and calm, flowing in quiet, measured cycles. Education persisted in the same slow, repetitive manner. Scholars studied religious texts, copying manuscripts carefully, over and over, until every line was steady and correct. Students observed teachers, practiced writing, memorized passages, and repeated lessons, gradually absorbing knowledge through patient, deliberate repetition. Libraries and schools became centers of slow learning, where movement, thought, and speech all proceeded carefully, deliberately, and in accordance with the established rhythm of the land. Knowledge accumulated gradually, passed slowly from one generation to the next, without rush or sudden change. Architecture continued the slow, patient traditions of the past. Mosques, madrasas, and public buildings were built with careful attention to proportion, symmetry, and ornamentation. Arches were formed slowly, domes raised with meticulous calculation, and decorative elements carved repeatedly by skilled hands. Courtyards and gardens were designed to harmonize with the sun and the river, creating calm, orderly spaces. Builders moved deliberately, placing stones, carving inscriptions, and polishing surfaces, taking their time to ensure that structures would endure. Even as new styles emerged, the steady pace of work reflected the ancient rhythm of Egypt, patient, deliberate, and unhurried. Daily life in towns and villages continued predictably. Farmers planted and harvested, herded animals, repaired tools, and maintained canals, all in accordance with the seasons. Bakers ground grain, kneaded dough, and baked bread with steady repetition. Potters shaped vessels, weavers threaded looms, and metalworkers hammered, filed, and polished with careful, slow movements. Children learned by imitation, practicing repeatedly, gaining skills gradually, while elders observed and guided, all moving in accordance with the same calm, persistent rhythm that had shaped life for generations. Trade persisted at a steady pace. Goods moved along the Nile in small boats, sails catching the wind gently, oars dipping slowly into the water. Caravans traversed deserts with careful planning, resting at oases, avoiding the midday sun, and traveling only as the animals could endure. Merchants conducted transactions patiently, counting coins, weighing goods, and recording details in slow, deliberate writing. Markets hummed softly with gentle activity, the repetition of buying, selling, and exchanging creating a comforting, predictable cadence. Life unfolded without rush, guided by tradition, necessity, and the patient flow of the river. Art and craftsmanship continued, slowly and methodically. Calligraphy became prominent, letters traced with steady precision, repeated across scrolls, walls, and manuscript. Pottery, weaving, metalwork, and sculpture followed long-established patterns, with subtle innovations introduced gradually. Patient artists repeated familiar motifs, refining their techniques over decades, producing objects that were both beautiful and enduring. Music remained gentle, soft, and repetitive, played in homes, workshops, and mosques, blending naturally with the rhythm of life along the Nile. The Nile remained the central guide, the unchanging source of life and continuity. Farmers relied on its annual floods, timing planting and harvest accordingly. Fishermen cast nets, pulled traps, and rowed boats slowly, moving in harmony with the river's current. Trade and travel depended on its flow, and towns developed along its banks, each community attuned to its steady, predictable pattern. Even as rulers and religions changed, the river continued to move, patient, consistent, and calm, shaping human activity with a gentle, unhurried hand. During the medieval period, Egypt continued its steady existence. Fatimid and Mamluk rulers built citadels, mosques, and public structures, all constructed slowly, carefully, and deliberately. Soldiers trained in measured drills, markets operated predictably, and scholars copied text meticulously. Everyday life remained calm, repetitive, and orderly. Families rose, worked, ate, and rested in cycles that echoed the rhythm of the Nile and the sun. Children learned the same tasks their ancestors had. Farmers tended the same soil, and artisans practiced the same crafts, all with patience and care. Even in times of hardship, drought, disease, or political unrest, the overall rhythm persisted. People adapted slowly, modifying their routines without breaking the predictable cycles of life. Food was gathered carefully, water was managed prudently, and work continued steadily with patience and resilience. The repetition of daily tasks, the slow pace of life, and the unchanging flow of the river provided continuity and calm, allowing generations to endure with quiet persistence. Trade with foreign lands continued, gradually, over years and decades. Caravans and ships moved slowly, connecting Egypt with the broader Mediterranean and Red Sea regions. Goods were counted, recorded, and transported with care. Markets remained gentle, with soft voices calling prices, coins changing hands deliberately, and transactions following predictable patterns. Life moved with unhurried regularity, each day resembling the one before, each season blending seamlessly into the next. Art, architecture, and scholarship all advanced slowly, without haste. Mosques and madrasas were decorated with repeated patterns and inscriptions. Manuscripts were copied by hand, over and over, ensuring accuracy and consistency. Artisans refined techniques patiently over years, producing works that were subtle, precise, and enduring. Music and poetry followed measured rhythms, accompanying ritual, work, and leisure, blending naturally with the soft, unhurried flow of daily life. The flow of the Nile, the sun's path, and the repetition of human activity created a consistent, soothing pattern. Farmers, artisans, scholars, and merchants all moved within this rhythm, following predictable cycles of work, worship, rest, and play. Generations passed slowly, leaving behind structures, texts, and traditions that reflected the calm, deliberate pace of life. Even as empires shifted and new rulers arrived, the underlying cadence remained unchanged, gentle, constant, and reassuring. Through centuries, the rhythm of life persisted. The river flowed patiently. The seasons repeated. Rituals continued. Crafts were practiced. Children learned slowly. And communities remained steady. Egypt endured, timeless, calm, and methodical, its history unfolding in a quiet, repetitive, and soothing progression. Each day, each year, each generation moved forward deliberately, guided by the slow, persistent flow of the Nile, the steady rise and fall of the sun, and the unhurried passage of time. After the medieval period, Egypt gradually came under Ottoman rule. The Ottomans arrived slowly, asserting control over the land, yet daily life along the Nile continued at its familiar, unhurried pace. Farmers rose with the sun, tilled their fields, planted seeds, and harvested crops, following the predictable cycles that had guided generations for millennia. Craftsmen worked steadily, shaping clay, weaving cloth, carving wood and stone, and molding metal, repeating motions with deliberate care. Children observed and imitated, practicing patiently until their movements became precise, calm, and familiar. Even under new rulers, the rhythm of life remained slow, predictable, and gentle, moving like the river itself. Cities and towns remained orderly. Streets were narrow, homes built of mud brick, courtyards containing small gardens and animals. Markets moved at a measured pace, merchants calling out in soft voices, counting coins, weighing goods, and running goods and actions carefully on paper or parchment. Bakers ground grain, kneaded dough, and baked bread, repeating their actions each day. Potters shaped vessels, weavers threaded looms, and metalworkers hammered and polished steadily, all practicing techniques repeated across generations. Life flowed quietly, comfortably, and without hurry, echoing the steady pulse of the Nile. The Ottomans maintained administration slowly and deliberately. Taxes were collected, irrigation systems were supervised, and trade was monitored carefully. Officials traveled between towns, ensuring compliance with the law, moving cautiously, never in a rush. Soldiers trained methodically, learning formations and exercises through repetition, moving in unhurried steps, maintaining discipline while matching the deliberate pace of Egyptian life. Even as political control shifted, the rhythms of everyday existence persisted, calm, predictable, and steady. Muhammad Ali rose, gradually in power, implementing reforms that changed the land slowly, deliberately. He modernized the military, introduced new crops, and established factories and infrastructure, all with careful planning and methodical execution. Soldiers drilled in formations, moving arms and legs in measured, repeated motion. Factories operated steadily with machinery, crafts, and workers coordinated to maintain a calm, unhurried rhythm. The changes were incremental, spreading slowly across the land, aligning with the existing gentle tempo of life along the Nile. Farmers adapted to new crops with patience, planting cotton, sugarcane, and other goods alongside traditional grains. They continued to follow the predictable rhythm of seasons, relying on the annual flood, plowing, planting, watering, and harvesting in deliberate cycles. Craftsmen incorporated new techniques gradually, learning from foreign methods while maintaining traditional skill. Artisans worked slowly, practicing designs, refining shapes, and repeating patterns until their hands memorized the motion. Life continued at its familiar, unhurried pace, even as modernization arrived slowly across towns and villages. Markets and trade expanded under Muhammad Ali, but movement remained measured. Caravans traveled carefully across deserts, resting in oases and moving in alignment with animal endurance. Ships moved along the Nile with patient attention to wind, current, and cargo, transporting goods slowly but reliably. Merchants counted and recorded transactions, repeating these practices daily, establishing patterns of commerce that mirrored the steady flow of water and the predictable rise and fall of the sun. Life, though touched by change, remained fundamentally calm, repetitive, and deliberate. Education and scholarship also advanced gradually. Schools were established, students observed and copied texts, practiced calculations, and repeated lessons over and over. Knowledge spread slowly, carefully, through repetition and patient study. Teachers instructed with deliberate pacing, ensuring that pupils absorbed each concept fully before moving on. Manuscripts were copied by hand, letters traced repeatedly, and learning progressed incrementally, reflecting the patient tempo that had always defined Life in Egypt. Architecture evolved gradually as well. Buildings incorporated new styles while respecting old ones. Mosques, public buildings, and palaces were constructed slowly, carefully, each stone placed deliberately, each arch measured precisely. Ornamentation and decorative work followed repetitive patterns, executed over long periods, blending traditional Egyptian forms with Ottoman and European influences. Workers carved, painted, and polished steadily, repeating familiar motions, maintaining the unhurried rhythm that mirrored life outside in the towns and fields. Even daily routines preserved the calm, predictable pattern of earlier centuries. Farmers tended to crops, guiding oxen through fields, repairing irrigation channels, and watching the land carefully. Bakers prepared bread, grinding grain, mixing, kneading, and baking in repeated steps. Potters shaped vessels, weavers threaded looms, and metal workers polished, hammered, and crafted objects with steady, repetitive motions. Children learned skills slowly, copying adults and practicing repeatedly, while elders guided quietly. The cycle of work, rest, meals, and ritual continued in gentle repetition, echoing the pace of the river. Trade and transport followed long-established rhythms. Goods moved steadily along the Nile. Small boats carrying grain, cotton, and other produce, sails catching the wind in measured movements, oars dipping in repeated stroke. Caravans crossed deserts slowly, resting at predictable intervals, always careful, patient, and deliberate. Markets continued their steady flow, merchants exchanging items in calm, unhurried voices, transactions recorded carefully. Life unfolded predictably, each day following the previous, each season transitioning gradually to the next, echoing centuries of continuity. Art and culture maintained the repetitive, methodical quality that had defined Egypt for millennia. Calligraphy flourished, letters traced slowly, repeated across manuscripts, walls, and monuments. Pottery, weaving, and metalwork continued in deliberate, steady motion. Music, soft and gentle, accompanied daily work, rituals, and leisure, flowing gradually in rhythm with the river and the sun. Craftsmen refined techniques over decades, repeating patterns and designs until mastery was achieved. Knowledge and skill were accumulated slowly, deliberately, and carefully, ensuring continuity over generations. Even during periods of foreign influence, the daily rhythms of Egypt persisted. European powers arrived gradually, establishing trade posts, diplomatic missions, and later, colonial administration. Life in villages and towns continued with gentle predictability. Farmers worked fields in measured cycles. Craftsmen repeated long-practiced motions. Merchants traded carefully. Scribes recorded transactions and texts slowly and methodically. Rituals, prayers, and festivals maintained steady repetition. Music, art, and storytelling unfolded in unhurried cadence. The river flowed without interruption, guiding life in its patient, steady manner. Through modernization and foreign influence, life remained fundamentally calm, repetitive, and deliberate. Seasons continued to follow predictable patterns. While the Nile rose and receded, crops grew, children learned slowly, and elders guided with quiet patience. Daily work, trade, craft, and ritual all adhered to the gentle rhythm that had persisted for millennia. Even as politics shifted and empires changed, the underlying cadence of life remained steady, soothing, and unhurried, like the river itself. Egypt endured through centuries of change, gradually integrating new ideas, techniques, and structures, but always preserving the slow, a deliberate pace of existence. Monuments, mosques, palaces and bridges were built with patient care. Knowledge was transmitted slowly through repetition. Artisans practiced crafts over decades, refining techniques with deliberate precision. Daily routines persisted in calm cycles, echoing the flow of the Nile and the passage of time. Life remained measured, predictable, and tranquil, comforting in its unhurried constancy. The river continued its patient course, touching every town, village, and city. Farmers, merchants, craftsmen, and scholars moved within the river's rhythm, performing tasks in repetition, guided by centuries of habit and tradition. Even as rulers, empires, and cultures changed gradually, the flow of life remained constant, steady, and serene. The land remained fertile, daily work continued. Rituals were performed, and generations followed the same calm, unhurried patterns as those before them. Thus, during the Ottoman and modernizing periods, Egypt's history unfolded slowly and deliberately. Life progressed in cycles, guided by the steady rise and fall of the Nile, the predictable rhythms of the seasons, and the patient repetition of work, worship, learning, and play. The people of Egypt moved gently through their days, contributing incrementally to a history that grew slowly, layer upon layer, enduring across centuries. Each generation added its own careful, deliberate efforts, reinforcing a rhythm that was unhurried, soothing and timeless, echoing the slow, steady flow of the river that had always defined the land. In the early 20th century, Egypt experienced gradual political and social changes. Foreign powers maintained influence, and Egyptians moved slowly towards self-governance. Daily life, however, continued its calm, predictable rhythm. Farmers rose at dawn, plowing fields, sowing seeds, and tending crops according to the predictable cycles of the Nile. Craftsmen shaped clay, carved wood and stone, wove cloth, and molded metal, repeating motions over and over with deliberate care. Children observed their elders, practicing patiently, learning slowly, and absorbing skills through repetition. Even as politics shifted, the rhythm of daily life remained gentle, deliberate, and steady. Cities and towns were busy but unhurried. Streets were lined with mud brick homes, small gardens, and markets where merchants conducted transactions. Slowly, carefully, and predictably, bakers prepared bread each day, grinding grain, mixing dough, and baking it in repeated, steady motions. Potters molded vessels, weavers threaded looms, and metalworkers hammered and polished objects slowly and methodically. Families followed daily routines, rising, working, eating, resting, and sleeping in gentle cycles. Children imitated parents, repeating tasks over and over, gaining proficiency gradually. The repetition and predictability of life provided comfort and continuity, soothing in its calmness. Education remained deliberate and patient. Schools taught reading, writing, mathematics, and history. Students learning through repetition, reviewing lessons, and practicing slowly. Teachers instructed carefully, emphasizing the step-by-step absorption of knowledge. Manuscripts were copied by hand, letters traced meticulously, and study followed a measured, unhurried pace. Knowledge accumulated incrementally, passed from one generation to the next, with quiet patience. Scholars reflected, observed, and taught, always in a calm rhythm, reinforcing the methodical pace of life that had persisted for centuries along the Nile. Political movements emerged slowly. Nationalist leaders debated, planned, and campaigned with patience. Demonstrations and petitions were carried out deliberately, with careful attention to order and procedure. Even as ideas of independence spread, daily life for the majority continued in its familiar predictable pattern. Farmers harvested, artisans crafted, merchants traded, and priests performed rituals. Life unfolded gently, each day echoing the day before, each season transitioning slowly into the next, in a rhythm as steady and reliable as the river itself. The British influence grew gradually, introducing infrastructure, railways, and administrative changes. Roads were built slowly, connecting towns and cities. Trains moved along the tracks with deliberate consistency, transporting people, goods, and information at measured speeds. Ports operated predictably, ships moving cautiously, loading and unloading cargo with care. Markets, homes, and workshops maintained their gentle, methodical pace. Merchants recorded transactions patiently. Farmers followed seasonal cycles, and artisans practiced long-established techniques repeatedly. The rhythm of life remained calm, steady, and unhurried. During these decades, modernization progressed slowly. Factories and schools were established, new crops introduced, and communications improved. Farmers learned to cultivate cotton, wheat, and other plants with patience, observing yields and adjusting techniques over time. Craftsmen integrated new methods carefully, maintaining traditional practices alongside innovation. Knowledge spread gradually through books, schools, and oral teaching. Life continued in cycles of work, rest, ritual, and learning, each task performed deliberately, each day echoing familiar patterns. Even as technology arrived, the overall pace remained calm and predictable. Art and culture adapted subtly. New styles appeared in painting, architecture, and literature, blending with traditional forms. Calligraphy, ceramics, weaving, and sculpture continued in steady repetition. Musicians played soft, measured tunes, accompanying daily work, festivals, and ritual. Stories passed orally and in writing, repeated motifs and familiar rhythms, providing continuity across generations. Craftsmen practiced slowly, refining techniques over decades, ensuring that skills were preserved and that objects were precise, enduring, and harmonious. Life flowed steadily, each activity measured, predictable, and gentle, echoing the unchanging cadence of the river. World War I and World War II brought slow, incremental changes to Egypt. Soldiers were conscripted, resources managed cautiously, and civilians adapted carefully. Life remained methodical, with people adjusting routines without breaking the overall rhythm. Farmers continued to tend fields, bakers prepared bread, craftsmen shaped objects, and families maintained daily habits. Children observed and practiced skills, education proceeded in careful steps, and markets continued to operate predictably. Even in times of uncertainty, the rhythm of life persisted, steady, soothing, and unhurried. Gradually, the independence movement gained strength. Negotiations, protests, and political activities unfolded incrementally. Citizens wrote, debated, and petitioned patiently. Change came slowly, deliberately, ensuring stability even as new ideas took root. Life in towns and villages continued at its familiar pace. Farmers sowed, watered, and harvested crops in measured cycles. Craftsmen practiced familiar techniques, repeating motions carefully. Markets, homes, and religious centers maintained their gentle routines, echoing centuries of calm, repetitive life. When Egypt officially gained independence in 1922, the transition was slow and measured. Government structures were established gradually, officials trained, and institutions organized over time. Daily life continued in its familiar patterns. Farmers guided oxen through fields. Children practiced skills learned from parents. Craftsmen repeated their work with precision, and markets operated predictably. Festivals and rituals continued with deliberate, unhurried repetition, reinforcing the calm, methodical rhythm of life along the Nile. The river flowed quietly, steady and patient, as it had for millennia, shaping the cycles of work, rest, and worship. The mid-20th century brought further gradual change. Urbanization increased slowly, with towns expanding, streets paved, and infrastructure improved. Factories introduced new techniques, but work remained measured. Farmers adopted modern tools and irrigation methods incrementally, learning slowly and carefully. Markets grew larger but retained familiar rhythms, with merchants moving deliberately, counting goods and coins in repeated steps. Education expanded gradually, with more schools and institutions, students learning at a steady, unhurried pace. Knowledge, skills, and daily routines all accumulated slowly, reinforcing the calm continuity of life along the Nile. Life remained structured and repetitive. Farmers observed the annual floods, planting and harvesting with care. Craftsmen honed their skills slowly, shaping objects over weeks and months. Bakers, weavers, potters, and metalworkers repeated long-practiced techniques with deliberate precision. Children absorbed skills gradually, imitating parents, learning through repetition, and practicing patience. Rituals, prayers, and festivals unfolded in measured sequences, reflecting the enduring rhythm of time. Even as modernization advanced, the pace of daily life was deliberate, comforting, and predictable, mirroring the steady flow of the river. Trade continued its calm, steady movement. Goods traveled along the Nile in small boats, sails moving with gentle wind, oars dipping in repeated strokes. Caravans crossed deserts at a slow pace, resting at oases and moving with deliberate care. Markets operated predictably. Merchants exchanged items in soft voices, transactions recorded carefully. Life progressed slowly, day by day, season by season, reflecting centuries of continuity and reinforcing the calm, repetitive cadence that had always defined Egypt. Art, architecture, and culture continued to evolve gradually. Modern buildings incorporated traditional forms. Mosques, schools, palaces, and public buildings were constructed carefully. Stones and bricks placed deliberately, decoration repeated methodically. Artists explored new techniques, but always with patience, practicing motions over and over until mastery was achieved. Music, poetry, and storytelling followed measured rhythms, accompanying work, leisure, and ritual in gentle, unhurried patterns. Craftsmen refined their work slowly, ensuring durability and precision. Knowledge and culture accumulated incrementally, mirroring the steady flow of life along the Nile. The river continued its patient, unchanging course. Farmers, craftsmen, scholars, and merchants moved within the rhythm it established, performing tasks in repetition, guided by centuries of habit and tradition. Even as rulers, empires, and cultures changed, the flow of life remained calm, steady, and serene. The land remained fertile, daily work continued, rituals were performed, education progressed, and generations moved slowly through the cycles of life, all guided by the gentle, persistent flow of the Nile. Thus, in the 20th century, Egypt's history unfolded deliberately and gradually. Daily life progressed in cycles, guided by the predictable rhythms of the river, the sun, and the seasons. People worked, rested, prayed, learned, and played with measured patience. Each generation added its contributions incrementally, preserving skills, knowledge, and tradition. Life remained unhurried, comforting, and continuous, echoing centuries of calm, repetitive, and soothing existence along the Nile. As the 20th century progressed into the late decades, Egypt continued to change gradually, almost imperceptibly day by day, while maintaining the familiar rhythms of life that had persisted for millennia along the Nile. Cities expanded slowly, streets widened, and new buildings appeared carefully, one by one. The construction of schools, hospitals, offices, and factories advanced at a measured pace, with workers placing bricks, mixing mortar, and laying foundations in steady, repetitive motions. Each task was performed deliberately, with patience, ensuring that structures would endure for many years. Farmers continued to work the fertile lands along the river. They rose at dawn, guiding oxen or tractors through fields, sowing seeds in precise rows, and tending their crops throughout the day. Irrigation canals were cleaned and maintained carefully, water flowing gently into each plot, nourishing the soil. Crops grew slowly and steadily, reflecting the patient pace of agricultural life. Harvests were gathered gradually, the grain piled, weighed, and stored with careful attention. Every step, every task, followed a predictable rhythm, comforting in its repetition and stability. In towns and villages, daily life continued to be calm and methodical. Markets moved at a gentle pace, merchants calling softly, counting coins and recording transactions with deliberate care. Shops displayed goods in neat, orderly arrangements, and buyers examined them slowly before purchasing. Bakers prepared bread in repeated steps, grinding grain, kneading dough, and baking in steady cycles. Craftsmen shaped clay, carved wood, wove textiles, and worked metal in slow, repetitive patterns, ensuring precision and durability. Children observed, copied, and practiced patiently, gradually acquiring the skills that would define their daily lives. Education expanded gradually, reaching more towns and villages. Schools taught reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and geography, students absorbing knowledge through repeated lessons and patient practice. Teachers moved deliberately, demonstrating techniques, reviewing lessons, and encouraging repetition. Manuscripts were copied, assignments repeated, and lessons reviewed until understanding was complete. Knowledge accumulated slowly, passed from teacher to student, from one generation to the next, always in quiet, deliberate increments, reinforcing the calm, predictable rhythm of life. The expansion of technology arrived slowly, carefully integrated into existing routine. Electricity extended to cities and gradually to villages, bringing light to homes, schools, and factories. Telephones were introduced, allowing people to communicate over distances, their use deliberate and measured. Radios played gentle music and news, filling homes with steady, rhythmic sounds. Slowly, factories incorporated machinery, allowing craftsmen to work with assistants, but always in a controlled, repetitive manner, preserving the deliberate pace that had defined Egyptian life for centuries. Transportation evolved gradually as well. Trains moved steadily across the country, connecting cities, towns, and ports. Roads were paved, allowing cars and trucks to travel at slow, measured speed. Boats continued to traverse the Nile, sails catching the wind, oars dipping rhythmically into the water. Caravans and trucks carried goods, following predictable routes with careful timing. Markets operated in familiar ways, merchants moving slowly, counting goods and coins repeatedly, maintaining a consistent rhythm that mirrored the flow of the river outside. Religion continued to provide a steady, calming presence. Mosques, churches, and temples remained centers of ritual, prayer, and community life. Daily prayers were performed slowly and deliberately, with movements repeated in careful sequence. Festivals and holy days followed the lunar and solar cycles, unfolding gradually with rituals, music, and celebration performed in measured, methodical steps, religious life remained patient, steady, and reassuringly repetitive, grounding the people in continuity amidst the gradual changes of the modern era. Even as urbanization advanced, the daily routines of ordinary people preserved a gentle consistency. Families rose early, prepared meals, tended gardens, and worked in shops, offices, and fields. Children attended school, practiced skills learned from parents, and participated in household chores with deliberate care. Artisans, factory workers, and clerks performed tasks in repeated methodical motions. Maintaining accuracy and consistency, life progressed predictably, each day flowing into the next, each season unfolding slowly, reflecting centuries of rhythm shaped by the river and the sun. Art, literature, and culture adapted incrementally. Painters and sculptors explored new techniques, incorporating modern materials and ideas, yet their work continued to rely on repetition, patience, and precision. Writers composed slowly, choosing words deliberately, crafting stories and poetry with careful attention. Musicians played in measured rhythms, accompanying work, leisure, and rituals in gentle, unhurried pattern. Craftsmen refined their techniques over months and years, repeating motions until mastery was achieved. Life, culture, and knowledge continued to accumulate gradually, preserving continuity while integrating slow, deliberate change. Even political change occurred at a gradual, careful pace. Elections, debates, and administrative reforms unfolded slowly, allowing citizens to adapt and participate deliberately. Policies were introduced gradually, giving farmers, merchants, educators, and workers time to adjust. Daily life continued in predictable cycles, with work, school, markets, and rituals maintaining familiar patterns. The rhythm of life remained calm, measured, and steady, echoing the flow of the Nile and the passage of time. Urban life continued to expand slowly. Streets and neighborhoods developed incrementally, with shops, schools, offices, and residences added carefully. Utilities and transportation systems were extended step by step, ensuring continuity and stability. Factories and workshops operated with measured regularity, workers performing repetitive tasks with deliberate precision. Markets remained gentle in pace, merchants speaking softly, counting goods carefully, and maintaining predictable, orderly routines. Even as cities grew and modernized, the overall rhythm of daily life preserved its steady, unhurried cadence. Agriculture persisted as a calm, repetitive foundation of society. Farmers continued to plant, irrigate, and harvest in cycles determined by the river and season. Livestock were tended patiently, pastures managed carefully, and produce prepared and stored methodically. Every step, every motion, every day followed a pattern repeated across generations, providing reassurance and continuity. Children learned by observing, practicing, and repeating, acquiring skills that had been cultivated slowly over centuries with patient guidance from elders. Trade, commerce, and transport remained deliberate and methodical. Goods moved along roads, rails, and the Nile with steady predictability. Markets and shops operated in gentle rhythms, merchants exchanging items, counting coins, and recording transactions with deliberate care. Caravans and vehicles moved cautiously, ensuring safety and continuity. Boats sailed slowly, oars dipping in measured strokes, sails catching the wind gradually. Life flowed predictably, echoing centuries of unhurried rhythm, comforting in its repetition and consistency. Education, scholarship, and cultural preservation continued incrementally. Schools and universities expanded slowly, offering instruction in traditional subjects and modern sciences. Students study patiently, reviewing lessons repeatedly, practicing skills over time. Libraries accumulated books, manuscripts, and records gradually, preserving knowledge for future generations. Art, architecture, music, and literature evolved cautiously, integrating new ideas while retaining long-standing traditions. Craftsmen and scholars worked deliberately, reinforcing the calm, measured rhythm of Egyptian life. The river remained central, guiding all aspects of existence. Farmers, artisans, merchants, and scholars moved within the river's rhythm, performing tasks slowly and deliberately, repeating motions as generations had before. Even as technology advanced, cities expanded, and international connections grew. The flow of life retained its soothing, predictable cadence. Daily routines, seasonal cycles, rituals, and crafts all continued in a gentle, repetitive, reassuring pattern, echoing the slow, patient movement of the Nile itself. Thus, in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Egypt's history unfolded gradually and deliberately. Life progressed in cycles, guided by the river, the sun, and the seasons. Work, rest, worship, learning, and play all moved with patient regularity. Each generation added its contributions incrementally, preserving skills, knowledge, and traditions. Urbanization, modernization, and technology were introduced slowly, integrated carefully, and absorbed gradually, maintaining the steady, calm, repetitive pace that had defined Egyptian life for millennia. The rhythm persisted, soothing, unhurried, and timeless, flowing gently, and the river itself. In modern Egypt, life continues along a slow, steady, and predictable rhythm, shaped by centuries of habit, tradition, and the ever-present Nile. In villages, farmers rise at dawn, guiding their oxen or tractors through carefully plowed fields. They plant seeds in straight rows, irrigate canals with measured attention, and tend their crops methodically. Water flows gently through the channels, nourishing the soil. Crops grow slowly, each leaf, stalk, and fruit developing in deliberate stages. Harvests are collected gradually, weighed, and stored carefully. Each step, from plowing to planting to gathering, follows the same calm, predictable pattern repeated across generations. In towns, markets operate at a gentle, unhurried pace. Merchants arrange their goods in neat rows, calling softly to potential buyers. Coins are counted, weights are checked, and transactions are recorded carefully. Bread is baked slowly, dough kneaded, shaped and baked in repeated steps. Craftsmen work on pottery, metal, textiles, and wood with steady motions, repeating techniques learned from elders. Children watch attentively, imitating movements, practicing skills patiently, and gradually mastering what they observe. The rhythm of life remains calm, deliberate, and comforting in its repetition. Education in modern Egypt continues incrementally. Schools operate with structured routines, teachers presenting lessons slowly, students repeating exercises, and knowledge accumulating through careful, repeated practice. Subjects such as reading, mathematics, science, and history are taught in measured steps. Libraries preserve manuscripts and books, with scholars copying, reading, and studying gradually. Learning is deliberate, paced slowly, ensuring retention and understanding. Students move through lessons in calm, repetitive cycles, reflecting the long-standing rhythm of life along the Nile. Religion and tradition remain central to daily routines. Mosques, churches, and temples host prayers, performed slowly and deliberately, with movements repeated in measured sequences. Festivals follow annual cycles, unfolding gradually over days or weeks, with rituals, music, feasts, and communal gatherings conducted in unhurried steps. Families rise early, prepare food, clean homes, and gather for prayer or celebration. Elders guide children patiently, teaching customs and rituals through repetition. Each event, each day, mirrors the previous, reinforcing calm continuity and the steady, reassuring pace of life. Even as urbanization expands, daily life retains its gentle rhythm. Streets widen slowly, neighborhoods grow incrementally, and new buildings are added one by one. Public transportation moves deliberately, with buses, trains, and cars operating at measured speeds. Factories and offices function methodically, workers performing tasks in repeated, precise motion. Shops and markets maintain predictable cycles, merchants counting goods carefully, transactions executed with patience. Life, despite technological advances, continues to follow a slow, consistent cadence, echoing centuries of tradition. Rural life preserves ancient rhythms even more visibly. Farmers rise early, observe the sun, tend fields, and maintain irrigation systems. Animals are fed patiently, pastures tended carefully, and produce harvested slowly. Craftsmen practice traditional techniques repeatedly, shaping objects by hand with deliberate care. Children imitate elders, repeating tasks until mastery is achieved. Daily routines are soothingly repetitive. Work, rest, meals, prayer, and occasional leisure unfold predictably, creating a sense of continuity and calm. Art, literature, and culture evolve gradually. Painters explore new methods, yet rely on repetitive practice to refine skills. Writers compose slowly, choosing words deliberately, revising over time. Musicians play soft, measured melodies that accompany daily work, rituals, and leisure. Craftsmen refine techniques for weeks or months, repeating motions carefully to achieve precision. Even modern forms of expression are absorbed incrementally, integrated patiently, reflecting the measured pace of life. Each generation adds to culture gradually, without haste, preserving continuity. Technology spreads slowly across cities and villages. Televisions, radios, and computers arrive gradually, integrated into homes and schools carefully. Communication systems allow people to speak across distances, yet usage proceeds at a deliberate pace. Factories adopt machinery incrementally, assisting workers while preserving steady, repetitive motion. Life continues with measured steps. Farmers tend crops, merchants trade, children learn, and families follow daily routines in a calm, unhurried manner. The overall rhythm remains comforting, stable, and predictable. Festivals and communal celebrations unfold slowly. Religious holidays, harvest festivals, and national events are planned carefully, with rituals and activities conducted in measured sequences. Streets fill gradually with people. Markets display food and crafts. Music drifts softly through the air, and families gather slowly to celebrate. Children observe, participate, and practice traditional activities repeatedly. Elders guide them patiently. Now, each movement, each sound, each interaction is deliberate and calm, echoing patterns that have endured for centuries. Markets and trade operate gently. Merchants arrange goods, buyers examine items, and transactions are conducted with deliberate care. Produce, textiles, and crafts are transported slowly along roads, waterways, and railways, each step calculated to maintain safety and continuity. Boats travel along the Nile at measured pace, oars dipping rhythmically. Sails catching wind gradually, caravans traverse desert routes slowly, resting at intervals, moving carefully. Life, work, and commerce progress predictably, providing a calming, steady cadence to daily existence. Education, both formal and informal, remains gradual and methodical. Students learn through repetition, reviewing exercises, reading texts, and practicing skills over time. Teachers present lessons slowly, ensuring understanding before advancing. Libraries and schools accumulate knowledge incrementally, preserving books, manuscripts, and records for future generations. Scholars study and teach with deliberate care. Learning is soothing, steady, and repetitive, reflecting the enduring rhythm of life that has defined Egypt for millennia. Urban-rural contrasts exist but maintain continuity in rhythm. In cities, offices, schools, and factories operate in repeated cycle. Streets move at measured speeds, transportation flows calmly, and markets function predictably. In rural areas, farmers, artisans, and villagers follow slow, deliberate routines that have persisted across generations. Both urban and rural life share the same unhurried, reassuring cadence. Work, rest, learning, prayer, and leisure unfolding in steady cycles, echoing the flow of the Nile and the sun's predictable path. Even daily chores and household routines proceed with patient repetition. Families prepare meals slowly. Children help with tasks in repeated steps, and homes are maintained carefully. Water is drawn, animals fed, gardens tended, and tools repaired methodically. These small, ordinary actions, repeated day after day, reinforce the calm, steady pace of life. Each generation learns through imitation, practice, and repetition, ensuring continuity across centuries. The river remains central to existence, guiding the rhythms of agriculture, transport, and daily life. Farmers follow the annual flooding cycles, planning, planting, and harvests accordingly. Boats and ships navigate gently, moving in measured strokes and sails. Caravans and roads connect distant towns at slow, predictable speeds. The flow of goods, people, and knowledge mirrors the flow of water, providing a steady, calming pattern for daily life. The river is a constant, unhurried presence, shaping life without interruption, guiding work, rest, and leisure. Modern life, despite technological advances, retains centuries-old patterns. People rise with the sun, work through the day, rest during the heat, and resume tasks gradually. Children observe, imitate, and practice skills repeatedly. Craftsmen, merchants, farmers, and educators move through tasks with deliberate patience. Markets, schools, and workplaces operate steadily. Festivals and rituals unfold gradually. The river continues to flow calmly. Seasons change predictably. Time passes slowly, comfortably, reassuringly, and continuously, echoing the same unhurried rhythm that has defined Egypt across millennia. Thus, in contemporary Egypt, life continues in gentle, repetitive, and steady cycles. Work, education, trade, religion, art, and leisure proceed deliberately, guided by centuries of habit and tradition. Urban growth, technology, and modernization are integrated slowly, carefully, and incrementally, preserving the calm, unhurried cadence of daily existence. Generations rise and fall. Children learn and grow. Farmers sow and harvest. Artisans shape and refine. Merchants trade, and families live in measured routine. The river flows endlessly, guiding life along its banks with patient, continuous, and soothing predictability. Life in Egypt continues to follow steady, unhurried patterns, day after day, year after year. Farmers rise at dawn, observing the sun as it slowly climbs above the horizon. They guide their oxen or tractors through fields, plowing carefully, planting seeds in precise rows, and irrigating canals with gentle attention. Water flows quietly through the channels, soaking the soil. Crops grow slowly, each leaf and stalk developing in measured stages. Farmers check their fields repeatedly, observing the soil, the plants, and the weather, ensuring that each step in cultivation is done carefully. Harvests are gathered gradually, grain weighed and stored, cotton bundled, and vegetables prepared for markets. Every motion is deliberate, each task repeated, reinforcing the patient rhythm of life along the Nile. Villages maintain predictable daily routines. So, markets open gradually, merchants arranging goods in neat rows, calling softly to passers-by. Coins are counted, weights checked, and transactions recorded slowly and methodically. Bakeries prepare bread in repeated steps. Grain ground, dough kneaded, shaped and baked in a calm, consistent manner. Craftsmen in workshops shape clay, carve wood, weave textiles, and work metal with steady precision. Each motion is repeated, practiced, and refined. Children watch attentively, copying adults, practicing over and over, gaining skill through patient observation and repetition. The repetition of daily activity is soothing, familiar, and continuous, echoing generations of similar routines. Education proceeds in incremental, unhurried steps. Schools follow structured schedules, lessons presented slowly, exercises repeated carefully. Students review previous material before learning new concepts. Knowledge is absorbed gradually, accumulated over time, and reinforced through patient repetition. Teachers guide pupils deliberately, ensuring that each student grasps lessons fully before moving on. Reading, writing, arithmetic, and history are practiced methodically. Libraries hold manuscripts and books. Scholars copy texts slowly, study diligently, and pass knowledge to successive generations. Learning is calm, rhythmic, and repetitive, reinforcing the steady pace of life in Egypt. Daily rituals and religious practices continue to unfold slowly. Mosques, churches, and temples remain centers of prayer and community gathering. Prayers are performed with deliberate motions, repeated sequences, and measured timing. Festivals follow the cycles of the lunar and solar calendars, extending over days or weeks. Families prepare gradually, meals cooked in repeated steps, homes cleaned, decorations arranged carefully. Music and chanting accompany celebrations, flowing in soft, steady rhythm. Children participate under patient guidance from elders, practicing rituals repeatedly until familiarity and proficiency are achieved. Each festival, each prayer, each ritual unfolds gently, echoing past generations' actions and maintaining calm continuity. Even modern urban life retains a measured, predictable cadence. Streets expand slowly, new buildings rise one at a time, and neighborhoods develop incrementally. Public transportation moves at steady speeds, with buses, trains, and cars operating in predictable patterns. Factories and offices function in repeated cycles. Workers perform tasks, record data, or manage materials slowly, deliberately, and precisely. Shops and markets maintain gentle rhythms. Merchants arranging goods and counting coins in repeated, methodical sequences. Life, despite modernity and technological advancement, preserves the unhurried pace and comforting repetition that has defined Egypt for centuries. Rural life continues ancient rhythms, even more visibly. Farmers tend to fields, checking crops, repairing irrigation systems, and monitoring soil health. Animals are fed, pastures maintained, and produce stored carefully. Craftsmen and artisans practice traditional techniques, shaping objects slowly and deliberately. Children learn by imitation, repeating tasks until mastery is achieved. Daily routines follow a predictable pattern: work, rest, meals, prayer, and occasional leisure, each activity flowing into the next in a calm, methodical progression. Generations repeat these cycles patiently, ensuring continuity across time. Art, literature, and music evolve gradually. Painters practice techniques repeatedly, refining brushstrokes over weeks and months. Writers compose slowly, revising words carefully. Musicians perform measured, repetitive melodies that accompany daily work, rituals, and leisure. Craftsmen refine their skills over years, repeating motions until precision is achieved. Even as new styles and methods emerge, integration is slow and careful. Each generation adds gradually, preserving old traditions while embracing subtle innovations. The continuity of culture mirrors the steady flow of the river, patient, consistent, and comforting. Technology spreads incrementally across Egypt. Radios, televisions, and computers enter homes, gradually integrated carefully into daily routines. Communication improves, but adoption is deliberate. Factories adopt machinery slowly, aiding craftsmen while maintaining repetitive, controlled motions. Work, school, and household tasks continue in gentle cycles. Farmers, merchants, children, and families follow measured routines, maintaining steady rhythms. Even with change, the underlying cadence of life remains reassuring, constant, and familiar. Seasonal life is observed carefully and methodically. Spring brings planting, summer demands tending and irrigation, autumn delivers harvest, and winter calls for preparation and repair. Farmers follow each stage deliberately, checking soil, water, and weather. Craftsmen repair tools, weavers prepare threads, and potters prepare clay. Families maintain homes, clean courtyards, and store food for the cooler months. Festivals align with seasons. Planting rituals in spring, harvest celebrations in autumn, and winter holidays providing moments of slow, repeated reflection. The cycles of nature and human activity mirror each other, reinforcing the soothing rhythm of life. Trade and commerce persist at steady, deliberate speeds. Goods travel on roads, rails, and the Nile with gentle predictability. Boats move with measured strokes, sails catching the wind slowly. Caravans traverse desert routes with deliberate pauses at oases. Markets remain calm. Merchants display goods, buyers examine, negotiate, and exchange items in patient, repeated step. Daily commerce unfolds predictably, each day resembling the last, each season following a similar rhythm. The repetition provides reassurance and a sense of continuity, echoing generations of trade along the river. Education, scholarship, and cultural preservation continue gradually. Schools expand slowly, universities develop incrementally, and students learn methodically. Texts are copied by hand, reviewed, and studied repeatedly. Teachers and scholars guide pupils patiently, reinforcing understanding and skill acquisition over time. Knowledge accumulates in measured steps, passed from one generation to the next. Art, music, and literature evolve gradually, integrating new influences while preserving traditional pattern. Craftsmen practice and refine techniques, repeating motions with deliberate precision. Every aspect of culture unfolds slowly, deliberately, and steadily, mirroring the flow of the Nile and the patient rhythm of Egyptian life, urban and rural life. Despite contrasts, share continuity in rhythm. In cities, offices, schools, and factories operate in repeated cycles. Streets and neighborhoods develop incrementally. Public transportation moves predictably. In villages, farmers, artisans, and families follow slow, deliberate routines. Work, rest, prayer, and leisure unfold gently. Children observe and imitate adults, practicing tasks repeatedly. Elders guide, demonstrating tasks and rituals slowly. Life flows predictably, day by day, season by season, maintaining calm, comforting continuity. Even household routines maintain gentle repetition. Families cook meals slowly. Children assist in repeated steps, and homes are maintained carefully. Water is drawn, gardens tended, tools repaired, and animals fed methodically. Small, ordinary actions are repeated daily, reinforcing the steady rhythm of life. Generations repeat routines, preserving continuity, patience, and calm. Each movement, each task, each interaction contributes to the slow, steady, reassuring cadence of daily existence. The Nile continues to guide all life. Farmers observe the annual flood, planting and harvesting with care. Boats travel with measured stroke. Roads and caravan routes connect towns slowly. Goods, people, and knowledge move deliberately. The river shapes work, leisure, and ritual, providing gentle, predictable pattern. Seasons change, festivals unfold, children learn, and daily routines continue. Time passes slowly, comfortably, and continuously. Life follows centuries-old patterns, maintaining calm, steady, and soothing rhythms, echoing the unhurried movement of the river itself. Thus, modern Egypt continues in gentle, repetitive, and deliberate cycles. Work, education, trade, religion, art, and leisure proceed slowly and steadily. Urban growth, technology, and modernization are introduced carefully, integrated incrementally, and absorbed gradually. Generations rise and fall. Children learn, farmers sow and harvest, artisans craft, merchants trade, and families live in measured routines. The Nile flows endlessly, guiding life with patient, continuous, and calming predictability. Life is unhurried, reassuring, and timeless, echoing centuries of repetition, rhythm, and calm. Life in Egypt unfolds slowly, day after day, with gentle repetition guiding every action. Farmers rise at dawn, observing the sun as it climbs gradually above the horizon. They walk to the fields, guiding oxen or tractors with careful attention. Plows cut into the soil in steady, deliberate motion. Seeds are planted in straight rows, placed evenly, and covered with soil, all done slowly, with measured precision. Water flows through irrigation canals, filling the furrows gradually, soaking the soil, nurturing each seed. Crops grow over days, weeks, and months, each leaf, stalk, and fruit developing in deliberate stages. Farmers check the fields repeatedly, observing plants, soil, and weather, adjusting carefully to ensure healthy growth. Harvests arrive slowly, collected methodically, bundled, weighed, and stored. Every step, every motion, every day follows the same calm, predictable pattern repeated across generations. In villages, markets open at a slow, unhurried pace. Merchants arrange goods on tables, mats, or shelves, calling softly to passing customers. Coins are counted carefully, weights verified, and transactions recorded methodically. Bakeries prepare bread gradually, grinding grain, kneading dough, shaping loaves, and baking them in repeated, measured steps. Craftsmen in workshops shape clay, carve wood, weave textiles, and work metal with steady precision. Repeating motions practiced for years. Children watch attentively, copying their elders, practicing tasks repeatedly until skill is acquired. Each day, each movement, each routine echoes centuries of repetition, providing calm and continuity. Education proceeds slowly, incrementally, with measured repetition. Schools operate in regular cycles, lessons presented gradually, exercises repeated carefully, knowledge accumulated step by step. Teachers guide students patiently, ensuring comprehension before moving forward. Well, reading, writing, mathematics, history, and science are studied over weeks and months, repeated until fully understood. Libraries preserve manuscripts, books, and records. Scholars copying texts slowly, studying and passing knowledge to successive generations. Learning is deliberate, rhythmic, and calming, reflecting the steady pace of life along the Nile. Religious rituals continue in measured, repetitive sequences. Mosques, churches, and temples host prayers with deliberate motions, repeated chants, and methodical timing. Festivals follow lunar and solar cycles, stretching over days or weeks. Communities prepare gradually. Meals cooked in repeated steps, homes cleaned, decorations arranged carefully. Music and chanting accompany celebrations, flowing in soft, steady rhythms. Children participate under patient guidance from elders, repeating rituals until proficiency is achieved. Every prayer, festival, and observance maintains a gentle, predictable cadence, echoing generations past. Crafts and artistry continue through slow, repetitive practice. Painters refine brushstrokes gradually. Sculptors shape forms carefully, and weavers repeat patterns steadily. Musicians play melodies with measured rhythm, accompanying work, rituals, and leisure. Craftsmen repeat motions for weeks, months, and years to perfect techniques. New styles are absorbed slowly, integrated carefully, preserving continuity. Each generation adds incrementally to the culture, layering new ideas on a foundation of centuries-old practice. Art, music, and literature evolve gradually, echoing the steady flow of the river and the patient rhythm of life. Seasonal work dictates daily routine. Spring brings planting, summer demands careful tending, autumn yields harvests, and winter calls for preparation and repair. Farmers follow each stage deliberately, plowing, sowing, watering, harvesting, storing. Craftsmen repair tools, prepare materials, and refine techniques. Families maintain homes, clean courtyards, and store food. Festivals align with seasons, providing rhythm and continuity. Planting rituals in spring, harvest celebrations in autumn, and winter observances of reflection and rest. Each season unfolds slowly, reinforcing predictable, comforting cycles. Markets continue to operate at gentle, deliberate speed. Goods travel slowly along roads, rails, and the Nile. Boats glide with oars dipping rhythmically, sails catching the wind gradually. Caravans cross deserts with careful pauses at oases, moving incrementally. Merchants display goods patiently. Buyers examine items, negotiate prices, and trade in repeated, methodical sequences. Commerce progresses predictably, each day resembling the last, each season following similar patterns. Repetition reassures, continuity comforts, and the flow of trade mirrors the flow of the river itself. Urban life maintains deliberate, incremental rhythms. Streets expand gradually, new buildings added one by one. Offices, factories, and schools operate in repeated cycles. Workers, students, and administrators move through tasks slowly, carefully, and methodically. Shops and markets retain predictable patterns. Merchants arranging goods, counting coins, and recording transactions with deliberate care. Life in cities, despite modernity, mirrors the unhurried pace of villages and farms, maintaining soothing continuity. Technology is integrated slowly. Radios, televisions, and computers enter homes incrementally. Communication improves gradually, but usage remains measured. Factories adopt machinery slowly, aiding workers while preserving deliberate, repetitive motions. Farmers, artisans, merchants, and students continue daily routines. Work flowing steadily, tasks repeated carefully. Even with technological advances, the rhythm of life remains calm, constant, and reassuring. Children learn slowly, imitating elders, practicing repeated tasks. School lessons proceed gradually, with teachers demonstrating, students copying, and repetition reinforcing comprehension. Children help with household chores, tend animals, assist in markets, and contribute to farming or craft work. Each motion is repeated, each skill practiced, ensuring mastery. Generations maintain continuity through patient observation and imitation, learning slowly, repeating, refining. Daily routines in households are deliberate and repetitive. Meals are prepared slowly, water drawn carefully, animals fed methodically. Courtyards and gardens are cleaned and maintained with repeated effort. Tools are repaired gradually, homes arranged incrementally, and objects crafted over days or weeks. Each ordinary action is repeated daily, reinforcing the steady, calming cadence of life. Generations repeat these patterns, preserving stability, continuity, and comfort. The Nile remains central, shaping the flow of work, trade, ritual, and leisure. Farmers observe annual floods, planting and harvesting accordingly. Navigate slowly, oars dipping rhythmically, sails catching wind gradually. Roads, paths, and caravan routes connect distant villages with measured pace. Goods, people, and knowledge move deliberately, echoing centuries of calm, steady motion. Life unfolds predictably, day by day, season by season, generation by generation. The river flows patiently, continuously, and soothingly, guiding every aspect of existence. Even leisure and play follow gentle, repetitive patterns. Children play near homes, imitating adult work, creating games that repeat familiar motions. Adults rest, converse, or observe the river, moving slowly, thoughtfully. Music and storytelling accompany leisure, with familiar tunes and tales repeated over time. Festivals and celebrations provide gentle variation, unfolding gradually. Each movement, song, and chant deliberate. Repetition across daily, seasonal, and generational cycles reinforces calm, predictability, and continuity. Work, education, trade, ritual, leisure, and craftsmanship continue steadily, flowing in measured, repetitive patterns. Generations rise and fall. Children learn, farmers sow and harvest. Artisans craft, merchants trade, families live, all guided by the river. Seasons change predictably. Festivals unfold gradually. Knowledge and skills accumulate slowly. Life is unhurried, comforting, and continuous, echoing centuries of repetition, rhythm, and calm along the banks of the Nile. Thus, Egypt, continues to exist in gentle, deliberate cycles. Each day, a continuation of the previous, each generation, repeating the work, craft, rituals, and routines of the past. Life flows steadily, patiently, and predictably, guided by centuries of tradition and the ever-present Nile. Each task, each movement, each interaction is measured, repeated, and precise, contributing to the slow, soothing cadence of existence. The rhythm persists, comforting, unhurried, and timeless, like the gentle, endless flow of the river itself. Life in Egypt proceeds slowly, day by day, season by season, with each task performed in calm, deliberate repetition. Farmers rise at dawn, observing the sun as it rises gradually above the horizon. They guide oxen or tractors through fields, plowing soil in steady, measured motion. Seeds are planted carefully, rows aligned evenly, soil covering them gently. Water flows slowly through irrigation canals, soaking the soil, nourishing each seed. Crops grow over weeks and months, each leaf, stalk, and fruit developing in patient, deliberate stages. Farmers inspect fields repeatedly, checking soil, water, and plants. Adjustments are made slowly and cautiously. Harvest arrives gradually, grain collected, cotton bundled, vegetables sorted, and produce stored carefully. Each step, each motion, each day repeats familiar patterns, echoing centuries of calm, steady life along the Nile. In villages, markets open gently at a deliberate pace. Merchants arrange goods carefully on tables, mats, or shelves, calling softly to passing customers. Coins are counted, weights verified, and transactions recorded slowly and methodically. Bread is baked gradually, grain ground, dough kneaded, shaped, and baked in repeated deliberate motion. Craftsmen shape clay, carve wood, weave textiles, and work metal with precise, steady movements, repeating tasks practiced for generations. Children observe attentively, imitating their elders, practicing tasks repeatedly, acquiring skills slowly, carefully, and thoroughly. The rhythm of daily activity is soothing, familiar, and unchanging, providing comfort through repetition. Education continues incrementally, with lessons presented slowly and exercises repeated deliberately. Schools follow structured schedules, allowing students to absorb knowledge gradually. Teachers guide pupils patiently, ensuring comprehension before moving to the next topic. Reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and history are practiced repeatedly over weeks, months, and years. Libraries accumulate manuscripts, books, and records slowly. Scholars copying texts and studying diligently. Knowledge is passed carefully from generation to generation, absorbed through repetition, and reinforced through patient, steady practice. Learning is rhythmic, methodical, and comforting, reflecting the calm cadence of life along the Nile. Religious and cultural rituals unfold gradually in measured, repetitive sequences. Mosques, churches, and temples host prayers performed with deliberate motions and repeated chants. Festivals follow lunar and solar cycles, extending over days or weeks. Families prepare slowly, meals cooked in repeated steps, homes cleaned and arranged, decorations hung carefully. Music and chanting accompany celebrations in soft, steady rhythms. Children participate under guidance, learning rituals through imitation and repeated practice. Every prayer, festival, and observance maintains a gentle, predictable cadence, reinforcing continuity across generations. Craftsmanship and artistry progress slowly, With deliberate repetition, painters refine brushstrokes carefully, sculptors shape forms gradually, and weavers repeat patterns steadily. Musicians play melodies in measured rhythm, accompanying work, rituals, and leisure. Craftsmen repeat motions over weeks, months, and years to perfect skills. Even as new styles emerge, they are adopted gradually, ensuring continuity with past traditions. Each generation contributes incrementally, preserving the foundations of centuries-old culture while layering subtle innovations. The flow of artistic activity mirrors the slow, steady current of the river, patient and reassuring. Seasonal work dictates the rhythm of life. Spring brings planting, summer demands careful tending. Autumn yields harvests, and winter calls for preparation, repair, and rest. Farmers follow each stage slowly and deliberately, plowing, sowing, watering, harvesting, storing. Craftsmen repair tools, prepare materials, and refine techniques. With patient repetition, families clean homes, tend gardens, and store food. Festivals align with seasonal cycles. Planting rituals in spring, harvest celebrations in autumn, winter observances of reflection. Each season unfolds gradually, reinforcing predictable, comforting cycle. Trade and commerce maintain deliberate, measured speed. Goods travel along roads, rails, and the Nile with gentle predictability. Boats glide slowly, oars dipping rhythmically, sails catching wind gradually. Caravans cross deserts with careful pauses at oases, moving incrementally. Markets remain calm, merchants display goods, buyers examine items, negotiate prices, and trade in repeated methodical steps. Daily commerce unfolds predictably, each day resembling the last, each season following familiar patterns. Repetition reassures, continuity comforts, and the flow of trade mirrors the flow of the river itself. Urban life maintains deliberate, incremental rhythms. Streets expand gradually. New buildings added one by one. Offices, factories, and schools operate in repeated cycles. Workers, students, and administrators move through tasks, slowly, carefully, and methodically. Shops and markets retain predictable patterns, merchants arranging goods, counting coins, and recording transactions with deliberate care. Life in cities, despite modernity, mirrors the unhurried pace of villages and farms, maintaining soothing continuity across generations. Technology spreads incrementally. Radios, televisions, and computers enter homes gradually, integrated carefully into daily routines. Communication improves slowly, but usage is deliberate. Factories adopt machinery gradually, assisting workers while preserving repetitive, controlled motions. Farmers, artisans, merchants, and students continue routines at measured pace. Even with technological advancement, the rhythm of life remains calm, constant, and reassuring, echoing centuries of tradition. Children learn through imitation and repetition. They observe elders, practice household chores, tend animals, assist in markets, and participate in farming or craftwork. Each motion is repeated, each skill practiced, ensuring mastery. Generations maintain continuity through patient observation, gradual learning, and repeated practice, preserving stability, rhythm, and calm. Household routines are deliberate and repetitive. Families cook meals slowly. Water is drawn carefully. Animals are fed methodically. Courtyards and gardens are cleaned and maintained in repeated actions. Tools are repaired gradually, homes arranged incrementally, objects crafted over days or weeks. Each ordinary task is repeated daily, reinforcing the steady, calming cadence of life. Generations repeat these patterns, preserving stability, continuity, and reassurance. The Nile remains central, guiding work, trade, ritual, and leisure. Farmers observe annual floods, planting and harvesting accordingly. Boats navigate slowly, oars dipping rhythmically, sails catching wind gradually. Roads, paths, and caravan routes connect villages with measured pace. Goods, people, and knowledge move deliberately, echoing centuries of calm, steady motion. Life unfolds predictably, day by day, season by season, generation by generation. The river flows patiently, continuously, soothingly, guiding existence in its gentle, unhurried manner. Even leisure and play follow gentle, repetitive patterns. Children play near homes, imitating adult work, creating games with familiar motions. Adults rest, converse, or observe the river, moving slowly and thoughtfully. Music and storytelling accompany leisure, repeating familiar tunes and tales. Festivals and celebrations provide gentle variation, unfolding gradually. Each movement, song, and interaction is deliberate and calm, echoing long-standing repetition. Work, education, trade, ritual, leisure, and craftsmanship continue steadily in measured, repetitive patterns. Generations rise and fall. Children learn. Farmers sow and harvest. Artisans craft. Merchants trade. Families live, all guided by the river. Seasons change predictably. Festivals unfold gradually. Knowledge and skills accumulate slowly. Life is unhurried, comforting, and continuous, echoing centuries of repetition, rhythm, along the Nile. Thus, Egypt exists in gentle, deliberate cycles, each day a continuation of the previous, each generation repeating the work, craft, rituals, and routines of the past. Life flows steadily, patiently, and predictably, guided by centuries of tradition and the ever-present Nile. Every task, movement, and interaction is measured, repeated, and precise, contributing to the slow, soothing cadence of existence. The rhythm persists, comforting, unhurried, and timeless, like the gentle, endless flow of the river itself. The sun rises slowly over the desert horizon, casting long, pale shadows across the sand that stretches for miles in every direction. Small tufts of grass, stubborn and wiry, push through the dry, cracked soil, bending gently in the light morning wind. Travelers move across the dunes, camels walking in careful, rhythmic steps, their padded feet pressing the sand down gradually, leaving faint, temporary impressions that the wind erases by midday. The travelers are carrying baskets of dates and clay vessels filled with water, each jug heavy and balanced carefully on the saddle. They pause occasionally, adjusting straps and shifting weight, each movement deliberate and unhurried. In the small town they are approaching, a bell rings slowly from a modest temple built from sun-baked bricks. The sound is faint, carrying across narrow streets lined with low houses, their walls whitewashed and slightly cracked from years of sun exposure. A boy sweeps the dust from the threshold of his family's home, using a bundle of reeds tied together. The movement is repetitive. Push, gather, lift, toss, and repeat, until the courtyard is tidy. A woman fetches water from a nearby well, lowering a bucket slowly, letting it fill gradually, then lifting it back to the surface with steady, deliberate strength. Each drop of water splashes softly into the bucket, the sound almost musical in its monotony. Nearby, a craftsman shapes clay into small bowls. His fingers press, smooth, and mold the material with careful precision. The bowl is turned slowly on a wheel, each rotation timed with a measured push of his hand. He examines it closely, making minute adjustments. Once the bowl is shaped, he sets it aside to dry, moving to another lump of clay, repeating the same motions with patience that could be mistaken for meditation. The dust of clay rises in small clouds, settling slowly on the floor and furniture, on the tools and the craftsman's sandals. In another part of town, women prepare bread in clay ovens. Grain is ground by hand, slowly and thoroughly, until it forms a fine powder. Water is added drop by drop, and the dough is kneaded carefully. Each loaf is rolled into a precise shape, then placed in the oven. The heat rises gradually, baking the bread over several hours. The aroma spreads through the streets, soft and consistent. Children watch quietly, waiting for the bread to be done, their impatience tempered by the slow rhythm of the process. Along the riverbank, fishermen cast nets with deliberate movements. The net spreads slowly across the water, sinking inch by inch. They wait patiently, feeling the pull of fish against the fibers, and then, with careful effort, pull it back. Fish emerge glistening, dripping water onto the bank. Each is measured, sorted, and placed gently into basket. Nets are checked meticulously for holes, repaired slowly with needle-like tools, and prepared for the next cast. The river moves constantly, but at a gentle, predictable pace, reflecting the calm labor along its edge. Across the fields, a farmer tends rows of wheat. He walks along the furrows, hands brushing lightly over stalks, checking for signs of ripeness or disease. A slight wind moves through the fields, bending the wheat in waves that ripple across the golden landscape. The farmer adjusts irrigation channels, ensuring that water flows evenly. Each adjustment is minor, but necessary. A tiny stone is moved, a small channel dug, water redirected in measured amounts. Hours pass slowly, the sun climbing higher, the shadows shortening gradually across the land. In a distant village, elders meet in a shaded courtyard to discuss seasonal plans. They speak softly, words drawn out, deliberating over what crops to plant, which tools require repair, and which animals need additional care. Decisions are made with care, considering the smallest details: the strength of a plow, the age of an ox, the readiness of seed. Their conversation drifts slowly, punctuated by pauses as they observe the wind, the clouds, and the occasional bird flying overhead. The discussion may last until the sun lowers toward evening, with no rush to conclude, because time itself feels measured and expansive. In a nearby workshop, a sculptor carves small statues of gods from limestone. Each strike of the chisel is deliberate, producing a soft, rhythmic sound. The stone dust accumulates on the floor and on the sculptor's clothing. He examines the statue after each motion, ensuring symmetry, adjusting curves and angles slowly. The figures are intended for a temple several miles away. But the journey is insignificant compared to the careful work of creation. Time passes without urgency. Evening approaches gradually, and the sky deepens into muted shades of orange and purple. In the town, lamps are lit, small flames flickering across doorways. The smell of cooking spreads through the narrow streets. Roasted vegetables, baked bread, simmering stew. Families gather slowly, each member performing minor tasks before sitting to eat. Conversation is soft, measured, deliberate, with pauses as individuals chew and swallow carefully. The night unfolds gradually, stars appearing one by one in the clear desert sky, each dot of light constant, unmoving, patient. On the outskirts, a shepherd guides sheep across a hill. Each step is slow and cautious, avoiding stones and holes. Sheep graze methodically, nibbling grass in repeated motion. The shepherd counts them carefully, adjusting the path gradually, guiding them toward water. Dogs move alongside, pacing themselves, alert but steady. The rhythm is continuous, unhurried, peaceful. Shadows lengthen as the sun sets further, and the air cools slowly, carrying a faint smell of sand, river, and vegetation. In a small temple, priests light incense. Old smoke curls upward in long, lazy spirals, filling the room with a soft scent. They chant slowly, each word elongated, pronounced with care, repeating phrases until the sound fills every corner. Ritual objects are arranged with meticulous attention, each placement deliberate. Time passes almost imperceptibly as the incense burns. The chanting continues, and the light of the setting sun shifts across the stone wall. Meanwhile, merchants in a distant city sort spices. Each grain is counted, measured, and arranged with precision. Cinnamon, cumin, and coriander are weighed slowly on scales, packaged into small containers and labeled carefully. Buyers come and go at a gentle pace, inspecting each item, testing aroma, and confirming quality. Transactions are executed methodically, each step taken with care, until the workday concludes gradually. Night descends fully. The sky, dark and vast. Sounds of wind through the desert, gentle lapping of the river, and distant animal calls mix softly. In homes, people sleep, resting slowly and deeply. The village is quiet, the city calmer, the river still moving, flowing gently through the night. Every stone, every tree, every ripple continues in measured, unhurried motion. Time seems almost suspended, continuous and steady. The day ends not with a rush, but as a gradual fading into calm, enveloping darkness. The rhythm of life persisting quietly, endlessly, predictably. The sun rises over Giza, painting the edges of the desert in faint amber light. The great pyramid stands quietly, immense and unyielding, casting a long, pale shadow across the surrounding sand. Small groups of laborers move across the base of the structure, their sandals pressing lightly against sun-warmed stones. Each step is deliberate. Stones are hauled slowly on wooden sledges, pulled by men and oxen, the rope fibers creaking softly. Each block of limestone is measured carefully before being lifted, placed, and aligned with the adjacent stones. Sweat glistens on the workers' skin, sliding down their backs, dripping onto the sand. They pause frequently to adjust grips and positions, moving slowly to avoid injury, repeating motions hundreds of times. Nearby, masons smooth surfaces with handheld chisels. Each tap is faint but measured, striking repeatedly in slow, precise sequences. Dust rises in thin clouds, settling gradually on the stones, tools, and the ground. Apprentices watch the masons, mimicking their gestures in small, careful motions. Their fingers press lightly. Chisel taps echo softly. Time stretches, measured in the rhythm of stone meeting chisel, block by block, day by day. The pyramid grows gradually, layer upon layer, its massive bulk expanding slowly, steadily, without hurry. In the desert, caravans move along sandy tracks, transporting goods between villages and distant cities. Camels step one after the other, padded feet sinking slightly into dune. Traders adjust bundles, shifting sacks of grain, jars of olive oil, and containers of dried fruits. Dust swirls lazily around their feet, stirred by the movement. The sun climbs higher, shadows shrinking, the air shimmering with heat. Travelers pause at small wells, drawing water carefully, drinking slowly, and resting before resuming the gradual journey. Each caravan maintains its rhythm, moving steadily, a quiet procession against the vast expanse of desert. Along the Nile, small boats drift downstream, loaded with papyrus, reeds, and pottery. Fishermen cast nets methodically, watching as the fibers sink inch by inch into the water. Each pull is slow and precise, ensuring the catch is handled carefully. Nets are untangled, repaired, and spread again, each motion deliberate. Birds hover above, circling in wide arcs, wings beating with consistent rhythm. The river's surface shimmers faintly in the morning light, moving imperceptibly, guiding boats along a gentle, continuous path. In villages by the river, festivals unfold over long, patient hours. Families gather to honor the river's life-giving presence. Torches flicker, reflecting softly on the water. Music arises gradually, with drums and flutes played in slow, repetitive sequences. Dancers move in elongated steps, shifting weight slowly from one foot to the other, arms rising and falling in measured rhythm. Children watch attentively, learning each gesture, copying motions slowly, imitating adults with careful precision. Food is prepared in stages, meat roasted over embers, vegetables boiled gradually, bread baked incrementally. The festival progresses with deliberate care, from morning into afternoon, until dusk settles quiet. In workshops, artisans engage in detailed labor. A potter shapes clay on a slowly turning wheel, pressing and molding with patient motions. Each curve is examined, adjusted, reworked. Once formed, the vessel is set aside to dry. A separate craftsman weaves reeds into mats, intertwining fibers with measured precision. The mat lengthens gradually, each row repeated over and over until the design is complete. Tools are cleaned, materials arranged, dust swept carefully. Even small movements, like tightening a cord or smoothing a surface, take time, executed slowly and methodically. Farmers in distant fields tend to crops with meticulous care. Rows of wheat, barley, and flax stretch in straight lines, bending gently in the wind. Farmers walk along furrows, examining stalks individually. Irrigation channels are adjusted gradually. Stones moved slightly to redirect water flow. Weeds are pulled one by one, soil loosened carefully around roots. Work continues steadily from morning until late afternoon, measured in steps, motions, and small repetitive tasks that accumulate into long, patient hours. Along hills and cliffs, stone quarrying takes place. Workers chip limestone from rock faces, the sound muted and rhythmic. Each fragment is extracted carefully, sorted by size and shape, then loaded onto sledges or carried to nearby carts. The quarry is alive with measured labor, dust settling gradually on the ground and tools. Apprentices copy the motions of experienced masons, hands pressing lightly, chisels striking slowly. Stones moved, measured, and placed in orderly piles, ready for transport to distant construction sites. In temples, priests perform rites over extended hours. Incense curls upward, smoke moving in slow spirals toward the ceiling. Words are spoken deliberately, chants elongated, each syllable carefully pronounced. Offerings are arranged methodically, cups of water, grains of rice, small bundles of herbs placed in precise alignment. Each action is slow, deliberate, and measured. Time passes almost imperceptibly, the rhythm of ritual steady and continuous, echoing centuries of practice. Even in households, life unfolds gradually. Water is drawn from wells, measured carefully into clay jugs. Meals are cooked over low fires, the heat building slowly, ingredients softened in gradual stages. Clothes are washed by hand in small amounts of water, rubbed gently, rinsed repeatedly. Floors are swept in quiet, circular motions. Dust gathered and removed carefully. Each day concludes incrementally, the household moving through tasks with measured calm. The setting sun casting long, steady shadows across walls, courtyards, and streets. Animals are tended with deliberate patience. Goats, sheep, and cattle graze in fields or near homes. Shepherds guide them slowly, counting heads, checking for strays, adjusting positions. Horses are brushed carefully, saddles tightened gradually, hooves inspected. Dogs accompany shepherds or patrol households, moving in slow, purposeful steps. Even small creatures, chickens, cats, and birds, follow patterns of feeding, movement, and rest, creating a quiet, continuous rhythm that envelops the village. As night falls, the desert cools gradually. Stars appear one by one, distant and steady. Wind moves gently, shifting sand in faint ripples. Sounds of distant animals, flowing water, and rustling vegetation fill the air. Subtle and consistent. Villages and cities grow quiet. Fires burn low, lamps flicker, families rest. Work ceases, but the presence of daily labor remains in the stillness. Tools set aside, vessels drying, nets coiled, stones stacked. Time moves imperceptibly, measured not in seconds or minutes, but in the slow, continuous flow of life, uninterrupted, unhurried, and persistent. Even in sleep, Egypt continues in deliberate rhythm. Dreams drift slowly, shaped by the gentle pulse of work, the movement of the river, the whisper of sand across dunes. Night deepens gradually, and the land rests in patient anticipation of dawn. When the sun rises again, the cycle resumes. Stones lifted, clay molded, crops tended, animals guided, rivers crossed, and rituals observed. Life unfolds endlessly, with subtle variations, each day unique in small details, yet bound by the same measured, hypnotic cadence. In the eastern plains, workers gather near the partially completed temple of a pharaoh whose name is carved faintly into the stone. The sun rises slowly, illuminating the scaffolding that stretches in careful, straight lines across the limestone wall. Laborers carry blocks up wooden ramps, sliding each stone into place with gentle force, adjusting it gradually until it aligns with the surrounding masonry. Some lift ropes, while others push from below, timing their efforts precisely. Sweat glistens, dust rises slowly, falling in thin layers on clothes, sandals, and tools. The temple grows incrementally, wall by wall, each stone a deliberate contribution to a monument that will endure for centuries. Scribes work nearby, seated on low mats beside inkstones and papyrus rolls. Their reed pens scratch softly across the fibrous sheets, recording accounts of labor, shipments of stone, offerings, and royal decrees. Each stroke is slow and precise. Numbers are written carefully, names repeated deliberately, every detail double-checked. The scribes pause frequently to examine their work, dipping pens into ink, adjusting lines, and aligning letters. Mistakes are corrected gently, with small amounts of ink blotted and reapplied. The flow of recording continues steadily throughout the day, measured and exact, ensuring that no detail is overlooked. Royal messengers move across the desert with measured pace. On horseback or camelback, they carry clay tablets and scrolls, letters and edicts written in slow, precise script. Each rider adjusts reins, shifts weight, and scans the path ahead carefully. Desert sands shift under hooves, producing quiet, rhythmic sounds. Filtered out, the occasional gusts of wind stir dust and small stones, But travelers continue with deliberate care. Oases provide intermittent relief, where water is drawn carefully, animals rested, and travelers pause for incremental meals before resuming the slow journey. Along the Nile, small boats ferry supplies to distant temples and cities. Workers load pottery, stone fragments, grain, and papyrus gradually, making sure each item is balanced and secure. Oars dip rhythmically, and sails are adjusted slowly to catch the faint breeze. The water moves steadily, carrying vessels downstream in patient, unhurried flow. Fish occasionally surface, moving slowly through the current, their scales reflecting light in tiny flashes. The rhythm of the river guides the movement of boats, the work of unloading, and the steady passage of laborers. In distant settlements, farmers follow subtle seasonal changes. Fields of barley and wheat are inspected with careful attention. Irrigation channels are adjusted with minor shifts of stone or dirt to direct water evenly. Tools are sharpened gradually, hoes, plows, and sickles aligned meticulously. Lumber proceeds steadily, measured in slow steps, bending, lifting, pushing, and adjusting. Shadows lengthen as the sun climbs higher, and the pattern of work continues unchanged throughout the day. Temples host extended ceremonies, each action deliberate and precise. Priests arrange offerings, small portions of grain, bread, or wine, placed methodically on altars. Incense is lit gradually, smoke curling upward in thin, lazy spirals. Chants and prayers echo softly, repeated over and over in steady rhythm. Candles flicker slowly, casting faint light across stone walls etched with ancient hieroglyphs. Visitors watch with quiet attention, stepping lightly, speaking minimally, absorbing the calm, patient atmosphere. In marketplaces, goods are sorted and displayed with meticulous care. Pottery, textiles, spices, and dried foods are arranged on tables, mats, or in shallow crates. Merchants weigh items carefully on scales, adjusting weights, measuring quantities, and confirming totals with slow precision. Customers examine products, test textures, smell aromas, and negotiate gradually. Each step deliberate. Transactions occur steadily, and merchants maintain records slowly, writing on papyrus with reed pens in patient, methodical fashion. Workshops hum with quiet activity. A carpenter saws wood with repeated slow strokes, measuring each plank, checking alignment carefully. A metalsmith hammers bronze with gentle, rhythmic motions. Each tap deliberate, echoing softly across the room. A weaver interlaces fibers methodically, creating intricate patterns through repeated, patient motion. Dust, wood shavings, and metal filings settle gradually, coating floors and surfaces in fine layers. Every action is extended, unhurried, and continuous. In villages along desert roads, trade caravans move with incremental progress. Camels carry goods of salt, spices, pottery, and grain. Merchants adjust loads slowly, checking ropes and baskets. Sand shifts beneath hooves, soft and yielding. Travelers pause at way stations, drinking water drop by drop, resting gradually, preparing for the next leg of their journey. Desert winds steer dust, creating faint clouds that settle slowly back onto the ground. Movement continues patiently, rhythmically, mile by mile, without urgency. Evening descends, and shadows stretch across the landscape. Lamps are lit in homes and temples, glowing faintly, casting elongated, gentle light. Families finish meals slowly, talking quietly, moving in deliberate, unhurried motions. Animals settle into enclosures, fed and tended carefully. Fire in hearths burns steadily, flickering softly. Outside, the wind brushes desert sands, rustling reeds, bending crops gently in the river valley. Time seems suspended, measured by the slow passage of light and shadow, the unhurried flow of water, and the gradual movement of humans and animals alike. At night, royal scribes continue work in quiet chambers. Clay tablets are inscribed with lists of laborers, taxes, or grain stores. Each symbol is etched with extreme care. Ink is applied slowly. Letters aligned precisely. Mistakes are corrected with soft, careful strokes. Documents are stored methodically, rolled and labeled, ensuring their preservation. Even as the palace rests, these records accumulate, slowly forming a complete account of life, labor, and order under the pharaoh's domain. Outside the palace, guards patrol in slow, steady rotations. They move incrementally along walls, checking gates and doors with measured care. Armor clinks faintly, sand shifts beneath boots, and spears are held upright. The night is calm, stars reflected faintly in the river. Wind weaves slowly over hills and plains. The desert, the river, the settlements, all are quiet except for gentle motion. Flowing water, rustling reeds, shifting sand, and the occasional sound of animals. Life continues steadily, uninterrupted, patient, continuous. Even in leisure, citizens proceed gradually. Children play along riverbanks, tossing small stones, splashing slowly, or imitating adult gestures in minor tasks. Adults rest, observing the river or conversing softly, their motions calm, movements deliberate. Musicians may play, their notes drawn out, rhythm slow and measured. All activity, however minor, follows a gentle, persistent cadence. The day ends gradually, with the cool night replacing the warmth of the sun. Darkness spreading incrementally over desert, river, village, and city alike. Night deepens. Night. Stars appear one by one, distant and steady. Lamps burn low in streets, workshops, and homes. The river reflects faint starlight, moving continuously but quietly. Animals sleep, humans sleep. The desert cools. Tools lay in orderly rows, fields and quarries rest. Boats moored along the riverbank. Time passes almost imperceptibly, measured in the slow, continuous, steady flow of life. Work, learning, trade, worship, and rest persist in long, patient sequences, each day ending gradually, each night flowing calmly into the next. Across the eastern deserts, merchants prepare for long journeys along narrow trade routes. Camels are loaded gradually, each bundle of dates, pottery, or woven mats adjusted slowly. Balanced carefully on saddles, straps are tightened with deliberate precision. Knots checked and rechecked. Travelers pause intermittently, drinking water drop by drop from small clay jugs, adjusting the position of heavy baskets, shifting weight on camel backs. The sun rises faintly over low sand dunes, casting pale light that slides slowly across the landscape. Every movement is measured, intentional, deliberate, and slow, as though time itself is stretched. Small villages dot the edges of these trade routes. Each morning, inhabitants rise gradually. A woman draws water from a well, lowering the bucket slowly, filling it carefully, then lifting it back to the surface. Children sweep courtyards, moving the broom in long circular motions. Dust lifted, then settling again, softly and silently. Men inspect oxen, adjusting harnesses, checking hooves with careful, slow gestures. Every task is extended, deliberate. Each motion deliberate repetition, carried out patiently over the course of hours. Along the river, Temple festivals progress steadily. Priests move in measured processions, carrying small, carefully balanced statues and bowls of offering. Incense burns slowly, its smoke curling upward in lazy spiral. Drums are beaten softly and deliberately. Flutes played in elongated notes that stretch across the space. Attendees step lightly, following ritual paths, repeating precise movements, slowly tracing patterns in sand or stone floors. Food is prepared gradually for the festival. Bread baked over low embers, vegetables roasted gently, grains boiled over small, consistent flames. The festival continues from morning toward evening, its pace unhurried, its rhythm steady and soothing. In distant workshops, artisans labor in quiet continuity. A metalsmith hammers bronze for jewelry slowly, measuring each strike to avoid excess force. Dust rises, settling gradually on benches and floors. Nearby, a carpenter saws planks for small furniture, measuring with gentle care, adjusting cuts, smoothing edges over many minutes. A weaver interlaces fibers in repeated sequences, ensuring uniform patterns in mats or baskets. The repetition is slow but precise, each step deliberate, reinforcing the rhythm of work. Fields across the Nile Valley are tended with gradual diligence. Farmers walk along rows of barley and wheat, inspecting stalks individually. Irrigation channels are adjusted slowly. Small stones or mounds of dirt redirecting water in minor increments. Weeds are removed one at a time. Soil loosened gently around root. Harvested crops are measured, weighed and bundled carefully, stored incrementally in granaries. Work proceeds steadily throughout the day, measured in steps, motions, and small repetitive tasks that accumulate across hours. On the river, boats ferry construction materials for temples, monuments, and houses. Workers load baskets of reeds, jars of grain, or small stones gradually, ensuring even weight and stability. Oars dip in steady rhythm, sails adjusted slowly to catch light winds. The water carries the boats downstream continuously, but gently. Small fish move beneath the surface, scales glinting faintly. Birds circle overhead, wings moving slowly in arcs, descending toward the river to drink or catch prey. The river reflects every movement in quiet, patient continuity. Villagers observe minor changes in the seasons, but fields shift from green to golden brown gradually. Leaves fall from palm trees slowly, brushing sand and rooftops. Wind carries soft grains of dust over streets and courtyards. On one side, animals graze incrementally, moving from patch to patch, nibbling consistently. Shepherds adjust flocks, guiding them one step at a time. These movements, though small and minute, collectively define the slow rhythm of life. In temples, daily rituals are extended over long hours. Priests arrange offerings on altars methodically. Small portions of grain, water, bread, and incense. Candles burn slowly, smoke rising in thin, twisting spiral. Words are chanted deliberately, each syllable drawn out, repeated to fill the space with slow, continuous rhythm. Visitors watch quietly, stepping lightly, speaking minimally, absorbing the atmosphere of calm repetition. Time moves imperceptibly, measured not in minutes, but in sequences of motion, breath, and subtle sound. Royal scribes continue to record decrees in quiet chambers. Clay tablets and papyrus scrolls are inscribed with slow, careful motion. Each stroke of ink is deliberate, letters aligned precisely. Mistakes are corrected with gentle rubbing and rewriting. Lists of laborers, grain stores, taxes and shipments accumulate gradually, forming a meticulous archive of life under the pharaoh's rule. Even as the palace rests at night, records grow steadily, silently documenting daily life and administration. In markets, goods are sorted and displayed methodically. Pottery is arranged by size, texture, and color. Spices are weighed carefully, measured with slow precision. Textiles are unfolded, examined, and stacked in neat piles. Buyers move deliberately, inspecting, testing, smelling, negotiating. Each transaction unfolds in slow steps. The rhythm of commerce continuous and predictable. Records are written, coins counted, and balances adjusted with careful, repetitive motions. Along desert paths, trade caravans progress slowly. Camels carry sacks of grain, pottery, and woven mats. Travelers pause periodically, adjusting loads, drinking from clay jugs, resting in small groups. Sand shifts beneath hooves and feet, creating faint, rhythmic sound. Oses offer minor relief, water drawn gradually, food consumed incrementally. The journey continues patiently, mile by mile, day by day, in calm, steady progression across empty landscapes. Evening descends. Shadows stretch across fields, villages, and streets. Lamps are lit slowly in homes, casting gentle light across courtyards. Families finish meals with soft conversation, pausing frequently, moving with deliberate care. Animals settle in pens. Feed consumed gradually. Fire burns low in hearths, embers glowing faintly. Outside, wind shifts sand over desert plains and riverbanks. The day ends incrementally, transitioning into night gradually. At night, stars appear one by one, distant and faint. Lamps burn low in workshops and homes. Rivers reflect starlight in quiet movement. Animals sleep, humans rest. Tools lie set aside, fields and quarries still. Boats are moored along the river. Work, learning, trade, worship, and domestic life persist in slow sequences, each action deliberate and precise. Time passes imperceptibly, measured by gentle motion, soft sound, and continuous quiet. Even in dreams, life in Egypt continues at slow pace. Laborers carry stones, scribes write meticulously, farmers tend fields, and artisans shape clay and wood. Festivals progress gradually, ceremonies unfold in measured rhythm. Night drifts slowly into day. Shadows lengthen and shorten. Wind moves sand and water alike. The river flows continuously, camels step deliberately, and all beings participate in steady, patient motion. Life persists incrementally, endlessly, predictably, with subtle variations yet constant rhythm, carrying the country forward into each slow, hypnotic day. Along the western plateau, laborers carry blocks of sandstone for a newly commissioned pyramid. Each block is large, heavy, and handled with extreme care. Wooden sledges are positioned under the stones. Ropes loop slowly around each slab. Teams of men push in measured steps, breathing in deliberate rhythm, shifting weight cautiously. The stone slides forward gradually. Sand beneath the sled compressed slowly. Workers pause frequently, adjusting grip, smoothing friction points, and ensuring that no block tilts or tilts imperceptibly. The desert wind moves lightly across the plateau, carrying faint grains of sand, brushing clothing and skin with slow, whispering motion. Nearby, masons refine the placement of blocks already lifted. Each stone is nudged minutely, aligned with surrounding stones. Chisels scrape softly against limestone edges, carving small correction. Dust rises in thin clouds, drifting gradually, coating the feet in sandals of workers. Apprentices watch carefully, mimicking motions in small increments. Only each step, each adjustment, each strike is deliberate, unhurried, patient, producing an almost meditative rhythm that stretches across the morning. In villages along the river, families prepare offerings for temple ceremonies. Bread is baked over embers. Loaves turned slowly to ensure even baking. Small bowls are filled with grains, wine poured carefully into jars. Herbs are collected and tied into bundles with gentle knots, while containers of water are drawn from wells with measured effort. Jugs lifted gradually. Children watch, imitating tasks in small, careful gestures. Only imitating tasks in small, careful gestures. Every step of preparation is extended, precise, repeated with the intention of producing exact results, ensuring readiness for ritual observances. Temple festivals unfold in long, patient sequences. Priests move in precise patterns, carrying statues or small bowls of offerings. Incense curls into the air in slow, twisting spirals. Drums are struck softly, flutes played with notes drawn out, and these step lightly, following ritual paths. Hands raised gradually, tracing ceremonial motions over extended minutes. Food for celebrants is served in deliberate portions, each guest receiving small quantities sequentially. Music, chanting, and movement continue steadily, slowly filling hours with quiet, predictable rhythm. Along the Nile, boats ferry construction materials for temples, pyramids, and town projects. Workers load baskets in clay vessels gradually, stacking them carefully to prevent shifting. Oars dip into the water methodically, sails adjusted slowly to catch even the lightest breeze. The river carries the boats downstream, continuously but gently, water lapping against hulls in soft, repetitive patterns. Small fish ripple beneath the surface, their movements faintly mirrored in the water. Birds circle overhead, descending occasionally for a slow sip or peck. The current, boats, workers, and animals all move in quiet, continuous synchronization. Merchants along desert trade routes prepare for extended journeys. While in the valley, camels are loaded gradually, balancing bundles of grain, pottery, or cloth. Travelers pause periodically, adjusting loads, drinking water drop by drop, and resting incrementally in small clusters. Sand shifts gently beneath hooves and feet, producing a faint, continuous sound. Wind lifts grains of dust into thin clouds that settle slowly. The caravan continues deliberately, mile by mile, day by day, each step measured, deliberate, and steady. In distant workshops, artisans continue with painstaking precision. A metalsmith hammers bronze slowly, counting strikes and adjusting force. A carpenter saws wooden planks in small increments, aligning edges carefully, smoothing surfaces gradually. A weaver interlaces fibers methodically, creating mats or baskets with repeated precise motions. Dust, shavings, and filings settle slowly, coating benches and floors. Every action, though minor, extends over minutes, hours, and days, reinforcing a continuous patient rhythm. Fields are tended with meticulous care. Farmers inspect barley, wheat, and flax slowly, examining stalks individually. Irrigation channels are adjusted with small mounds of dirt or stone, directing water incrementally. Weeds are removed one at a time. Soil loosened carefully around roots. Harvested crops are measured, weighed, and stored gradually in granaries. Each day's labor is extended, repeated in small motions, creating long continuous sequences that stretch from dawn until the sun begins to lower. Evening falls gradually, shadows stretching across desert sands, riverbanks, fields, and villages. Lamps are lit slowly in homes, casting gentle light across courtyards. Families finish meals with soft, measured conversation. Animals settle in pens, feeding and resting with careful patience. Fire burns low on hearths, embers glowing faintly. Wind moves sand and river reeds gently. Transition from day to night is subtle, slow, unhurried, stretching the sense of time across hours. Royal scribes continue work in quiet chambers. Clay tablets and papyrus scrolls are inscribed with meticulous care. Symbols are drawn slowly, letters aligned precisely. Mistakes are corrected with gentle strokes. Lists of laborers, grain stores, tax records, and shipments accumulate gradually, forming an exact archive of life under the pharaoh's rule. Even as the palace rests at night, the process continues silently, documenting activity in continuous, patient sequences. Night deepens across the desert and river valley. Stars appear one by one, faint and distant. Lamps burn low in workshops, temples, and homes. Rivers reflect faint starlight. Moving steadily, animals sleep, humans rest. Tools lie set aside. Fields are still. Boats moored along the riverbank. Life continues in slow sequences, measured by gentle motion, soft sound, and continuous quiet. Each day passes incrementally into the next, and the cycle of work, ritual, transport, trade, and rest persists steadily. Even in sleep, Egypt's rhythm continues. Laborers lift stones, scribes write carefully, farmers tend fields, artisans shape clay and wood, and merchants travel desert paths. Festivals progress slowly, ceremonies unfold in measured steps. Temples stand silently. As offerings accumulate, the night stretches, light fading, shadow lengthening, wind moving across dunes, reeds, and street. Time is continuous, unhurried, gentle, with each day emerging from the previous gradually, incrementally, predictably, endlessly. In the northern delta, pharaohs issue decrees that ripple slowly through villages, towns, and temples. Messengers carry clay tablets or roll papyrus, scrolls across fields and along riverbanks. They move deliberately, adjusting bundles, checking ropes, and pausing periodically to drink water slowly, sip by sip, from small jugs. Villagers gather to hear announcements, standing quietly as words are read aloud in measured tones. The content is detailed, describing allocations of grain, directives for construction, or minor regulations regarding irrigation channel. Every word is extended, emphasized slowly, so the message is absorbed in careful increments. Along the Nile, river ferries transport goods and people with patient continuity. Large boats carry reeds, stone, grain, pottery, and wood. Oars dip rhythmically, sails adjusted gradually to catch light breezes. Workers on board check loads carefully, shifting baskets slowly to maintain balance. Water laps gently against hulls in continuous, quiet repetition. Fish occasionally break the surface, creating small ripples. Birds circle overhead, descending in gradual, calculated motions to drink or snatch prey. The river flows relentlessly yet softly, guiding every movement with persistent, unhurried rhythm. In villages, farmers tend crops with meticulous patience. Barley, wheat, flax, and vegetables are inspected individually. Irrigation channels are adjusted slowly. Minor stone barriers move carefully to direct water flow. Weeds are removed one by one, soil loosened around roots. Crops are harvested gradually, bundled into neat stacks, and stored incrementally in granaries. Labor proceeds steadily from dawn until late afternoon, measured in small, repetitive steps that stretch time across hours. Shadows lengthen as the sun shifts, and the rhythm continues uninterrupted. Artisans work in workshops with slow, deliberate precision. A metalsmith hammers bronze jewelry with repeated, gentle strike. Sparks fly faintly, falling slowly onto the bench. A carpenter saws wooden planks in measured increments, smoothing edges with sand and cloth. A weaver interlaces fibers meticulously, producing baskets, mats, and textiles in gradual sequences. Dust, shavings, and filings settle over time, coating benches, floors, and tools. Every gesture is extended, unhurried, precise, contributing to the slow cadence of creation. Temples host festivals that unfold gradually over hours. Priests carry bowls of offerings, statues, and incense, moving in long, careful sequences. Drums are struck softly, flutes played in elongated notes. Worshippers follow ritual paths, hands lifted incrementally, tracing ceremonial gestures with slow precision. Food for participants is served in measured portions. Music, chanting, and ritual movement continue steadily, stretching into the afternoon. The festival persists in patient rhythm, with subtle variation in every gesture, note, and aroma. Along desert trade routes, merchants progress incrementally. Camels carry baskets of grain, jars of oil, and woven mats. Travelers pause to adjust loads, sip water slowly, rest in small groups, and check the alignment of saddles. Sand shifts under hooves and feet, stirred by the occasional wind. Oases offer intermittent relief. Water drawn gradually, food consumed in measured bites. Caravan continues mile by mile, day by day, step by step, unhurried, each movement deliberate and patient. Minor conflicts occur occasionally on the edges of villages or in desert outposts. Scouts report slowly on the positions of distant neighbors or a nomadic band. Decisions are made incrementally. Adjustments to patrol routes, repositioning of supplies, or reinforcement of small defenses. Soldiers march in measured steps, shields adjusted carefully, spears balanced precisely. Engagements, if they occur, are brief and minor. Each movement is executed deliberately, tension unfolding slowly, resolved incrementally, the calm of routine restored soon after. Royal scribes continue to record activity with painstaking precision. Clay tablets and papyrus scrolls accumulate steadily. Symbols are etched with gentle care. Lines aligned, mistakes corrected with soft strokes. Lists of laborers, harvest yields, shipments, and taxes accumulate gradually, forming detailed records of life under the pharaoh's reign. Even at night, when the palace rests, scribes continue in quiet chambers, maintaining the slow, meticulous order of documentation. Along the Nile, fishermen cast nets with patient rhythm. The fibers sink slowly, each pull measured. Fish are collected carefully, sorted, and placed into baskets incrementally. Nets are repaired with gentle movements, stretched and sewn with deliberate care. Boats drift gradually downstream, oars dipping in continuous, quiet repetition. Birds swoop above, landing with soft, careful steps. Ripples expand slowly across the water, spreading movement in gentle, hypnotic waves. In workshops, potters shape clay gradually. Wheels turn slowly as hands mold forms, pressing, smoothing, adjusting curve. Each vessel is inspected carefully, imperfections corrected with small, deliberate motion. Clay dust rises gradually, settling on surfaces, tools, and clothing. Other artisans carve wood, measure stone, or weave fibers with patient, repetitive gestures. Every motion contributes to the quiet, continuous rhythm of labor, extending across hours. Evening, arrives slowly. Lamps are lit in homes and temples, casting gentle light across courtyards and streets. Families conclude meals in soft conversation. Animals settle into pens. Fires burn low in hearth. The wind shifts sand, bending reeds, stirring loose grains in street. Shadows lengthen across rooftops, riverbanks and field. The day transitions gradually into night, extending into darkness with subtle, almost imperceptible motion. In villages, daily routines conclude incrementally. Water is stored carefully, tools cleaned, livestock fed slowly. Children sleep after long days of observation and minor work. Adults rest after tending crops, animals, and homes. On towers, the calm rhythm of daily life persists even as night deepens. Lamps burn low, fires glow faintly, and wine continues to shift sand, carry scents, and move air across streets, fields, and riverbanks. Royal decrees continue to guide the organization of labor, allocation of resources, and religious observances. Messengers travel slowly across the land, delivering instructions that influence trade and ritual. Every instruction is absorbed incrementally, shaping behavior gradually over hours and days. Consequences unfold quietly, consistently, without urgency, contributing to the unbroken rhythm of life across Egypt. At night, stars appear one by one in the desert sky. The river reflects faint starlight, moving steadily, flowing past boats, bridges, and settlements. Animals sleep, humans rest, and the land cools gradually. Tools lie set aside. Fields and granaries remain quiet. Workshops dark. Time passes imperceptibly, measured in gentle motion. Soft sound and continuous calm. Work, worship, trade, festivals, and domestic life persist in long, patient sequences, stretching from one day to the next. Even in dreams, Egypt's daily rhythm continues. Laborers lift stones, scribes write carefully, farmers tend fields, artisans shape clay and wood, merchants travel desert routes, and priests perform ritual gestures. Festivals proceed slowly. Ceremonies unfold in measured steps. Rivers flow. Sands shift. Animals move incrementally. Time stretches gradually. Shadows lengthen. Light fades. Wind moves across dunes and riverbanks. And life continues endlessly in gentle, unhurried, hypnotic rhythm. The land, river, desert, and settlements breathe together, forming a single, continuous, steady pulse. The sun rises and sets incrementally. The river laps against its banks. Sand shifts in quiet motion. Shadows stretch, animals stir. Birds glide slowly, and humans move carefully through their tasks. Generations continue this rhythm without pause. But every action, every gesture, every breath contributes to the slow, deliberate, continuous flow of life, extending across centuries. Thus, Egypt endures in patient continuity. Pyramids rise gradually. Temples host ritual observances. Fields are tended with careful attention. Workshops hum with measured labor. Caravans move slowly across desert routes. Rivers carry boats steadily downstream. Scribes make. Each day flows into the next with minimal variation. Each night deepening gradually. Each season shifting subtly. Life persists continuously, steadily, unhurriedly, hypnotically, until time itself seems to stretch endlessly across the land. And now, as the sun has set slowly over the sands of Egypt, and the gentle shadows of the pyramids stretch across the land, it is time for you to let your body relax completely, to let your mind drift. Slowly, quietly, gently, feel your breath. In and out, in and out. Notice how each inhale brings a sense of calm, and each exhale releases any tension you may be holding, allowing you. Imagine the Nile flowing steadily, softly, carrying small ripples across its surface, the water moving gently, without hurry, just like your thoughts, drifting slowly, naturally, effortlessly. Picture the ancient stones of the pyramids, built layer by layer, slowly, patiently, over long, long hours. Each stone placed carefully, each step repeated, over and over, until the structure stands solid and enduring. Hear the soft, distant chants of the temple priests, the faint, curling smoke of incense, the quiet, repetitive rhythms of drums and flutes. Each sound slow. Now, imagine walking along the riverbank, the sand warm beneath your feet, the gentle breeze brushing your face, the reeds swaying slowly, every sound, every movement, every sound, every movement, every sensation moving. The villages are quiet now, the people resting, animals settled, fires glowing faintly, life continuing gently, slowly, steadily, just like your body, just like your mind. As you sink deeper, deeper, feel a desert night around you, the stars above twinkling softly, distant, calm, eternal. The moon casting a pale, gentle light, your thoughts growing quieter. Every muscle in your body is relaxed, your jaw softens, your shoulders drop, your arms rest, your legs feel heavy, your back supported. You are safe, you are calm, you are drifting, 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 deeper and deeper, into a space of pure rest, a space where sleep comes naturally, easily, effortlessly. The river continues to flow, the wind continues to shift sand, the pyramids remain silently strong, the desert stretches endlessly, and you too can remain at peace, still, quiet, calm, letting sleep take you. With every breath, every exhale, you feel lighter, more relaxed, more ready to surrender to the night, to the gentle, hypnotic rhythm of your own body, your own mind. And let your thoughts slow, let your body soften, let your mind wander and drift. Slowly, softly, deeper, deeper, into sleep. And now, as you continue to drift, know that you are carried gently, gently, by the calm, soothing, steady rhythm of history, of life, and of your own breath. Sleep deeply. Good night.